Sophia was just smiling, listening to the whole exchange. Caddy couldn't help but roll her eyes at her friend. He asked a question like that, and you can tell he's already cooking up some insane scheme. And you're not even mad? Sophia just pouted and shrugged. Why would I be? Kat was speechless. Fine. She turned back to Leo with a warning. The Jang Corporation was Ethan's baby. All the old guard there, they only answer to him. Now, the second he's in trouble, these vultures pop out of the woodwork. It doesn't take a genius to figure out they're up to no good. Dragging Grace and Gu into this is just their way of using his family's resources to quickly stabilize their position. She let out a dry, humorless laugh. I don't know whether to applaud them for being so bold as to invite a wolf into the fold. Leo stroked his chin, looking at Kat with theatrical wonder. Kat, my dear, how do you know so much? Kat shot a tired look at Sophia. You're not going to believe this, she began, but last night, in the middle of the night, your precious Sophia snuck into my room and climbed into my bed. Before Kat could finish, Sophia glared at her. You're making things up. Kat wasn't having it. Oh, am I? Tell me what part was made up. Did you not sneak into my room in the middle of the night? Or did you not climb into my bed? Sophia, turn away. That's only because you wouldn't wake up when I called you. The memory seemed to reignite Kat's frustration. Her face was a mask of pure exasperation. Who in their right mind wants to wake up in the dead of night to run a background check on the Jang Corporation for you? Kat worked in media. She knew people had sources. Digging up information wasn't hard for her, just annoying when it interrupted her sleep. The more she talked, the more helpless she sounded. It's always for you, she sighed. You know full well Leo's only doing this to help that Chloe girl, and you're still so willing to. You deserve to be taken for granted. After her rant, she expected Sophia to argue back. Instead, Sophia just looked at her with utter seriousness and said, But I want to. Even Leo was taken aback. Fearing the two of them would get stuck in an endless loop, he quickly changed the subject. Hey, Kat, did you get all your paperwork sorted out? Kat had been in the middle of an existential crisis, genuinely wondering if Sophia had lost her mind. Leo's voice pulled her back. More or less, she said. And by the way, thanks for your help with this. Realizing a simple thank you wasn't enough, she added, I know Jesse Jiang. He's got a thing for some B-list pop star. If you want. She left the rest unsaid. Confident Leo would understand. No need to pollute Sophia's innocent ears with such things. Not for now, Leo replied without a second thought. He preferred to handle his own messes. Involving too many people was complicated. Seeing he wasn't interested, Kat didn't press. Well, let me know if you need anything. I'm broke and I can't fight, but my company is full of women. We're not afraid of a war of words. Leo gave her a look. Well, thank you so much for that, my dearest Kat. Don't mention it. We're family, after all. Now that she was talking business, and likely remembering Leo's role in her acquisition of Hamlin Media, her tone toward him was remarkably friendly. But Sophia balked. Family? Who's family with you? Kat was confused. Are you not my little sister? No. Kat blinked. Then a cold smile spread across her face. Huh. Fine. It's enough that Leo is my little brother. That means you still have to call me sis, right? Now, it was Leo's turn to object. Who said I'm your little brother? Seeing Kat get shot down, Sophia let out a small giggle before quickly suppressing it, as if realizing it wasn't very nice. As Kat stared in disbelief, Sophia walked over and looped her arm through Leo's. All right, I'm gonna go check on Chloe, she said. And something about Mr. Jang's situation. It doesn't feel simple. After learning about it last night, she had also reached out to her own contacts. The official story had holes you could drive a truck through. Seeing the two of them ignore her, Kat sighed and called out, Sophia, I'm heading out. Sophia didn't reply, just waved a hand in acknowledgement. Inside the hotel suite, Chloe was curled up on the sofa, hugging her knees and staring blankly at the TV. The teen drama she used to love couldn't hold her attention for a second. Gabby sat beside her, her head in her hands. Chloe, you want an apple? I can peel one for you. Thanks, I'm okay. Then at least have some water. Your lips are getting chapped. Chloe remained motionless. It made sense. She had been Ethan Jang's princess her whole life, sheltered from every hardship. This was too much for her to handle. When she heard the sound of the door opening, she finally looked up. Is that Leo? Maybe only Leo could offer her a sliver of comfort now. Chloe. It was Sophia who entered first. She'd never seen Chloe looking so worn down. Chloe managed a weak, forced smile. Sophia. Leo followed her in and, without a second thought, sat down right beside her. Leo, make her drink some water, Gabby urged. Leo nodded, taking the glass from Gabby's hand. You don't want your dad to come back and see you like this, do you? Chloe nodded meekly and finally took a small sip. Sophia sat down on her other side. Okay, you go handle your business, she told Leo. I'll stay and talk with Chloe. Leo knew Sophia could handle it. He felt relieved, leaving Chloe in her care. He nodded and left. He really did have things to deal with. He just got a call from Mr. Stewart, Rush Sportswear. The unexpected had, as expected, happened. The distributors and partner stores they had deals with, as if in a coordinated attack, were all demanding a higher cut of the profits. In many places, they'd simply closed up shop. Hundreds of stores across the country were affected. The moment Leo stepped out of the hotel, his phone rang again. It was Lorraine. Boss, should I come to you? Or are you coming here? Even though she wasn't directly in charge of Rush anymore, she wanted to help now that there was a crisis. Leo, however, didn't accept the offer. These are small problems. Don't worry about it. I'll handle it. You just focus on digging up the dirt on those companies I gave you. Laura immediately cut in. Boss, who do you take me for? It's been days. I've already got it all. Tencent and Alibaba's stock prices are high, but we can still buy in. And as for that new streaming startup that just launched, they're desperate for cash right now. Boss, the main problem right now is that over 20% of our partner stores and distributors have unilaterally terminated their contracts, Lorraine reported, her voice echoing slightly in the conference room of Rush Sportswear's regional office. Most of the rest are demanding a higher profit share. If they don't get it, they're threatening to walk. A somber group was gathered around the large table. Laura had come after all. She knew the company's operations better than anyone. In his initial push to rapidly expand the brand, Leo had employed a win-win store-within-a-store consignment model. While it had drastically cut the cost and time needed to open new locations, the stores were ultimately not his. Once the initial contract period was over, renewals were bound to bring trouble. Trouble like this. Of course, when everyone was making money, the win-win setup was perfect. But things had changed. It seemed those partners had found a better option. The ones who've already terminated their contracts have started partnering with another brand, one by one. Laura continued, her tone grave. And from what I've heard, most of those who are still holding out are also in talks with them. The atmosphere in the room was tense. No one dared to speak while she was giving her report. Compared to everyone else, Leo was remarkably calm. He even waved at Laura's assistant, signaling for a cup of coffee. Mr. Stewart had flown in for this meeting, along with several department heads from headquarters. They were all waiting for Leo to make a decision. If he handled this poorly, the Rush brand would be nothing more than a flash in the pan. Maybe we should just try to stabilize our current partners first? Give them a slightly higher percentage, someone finally suggested, unable to bear the suffocating silence. The moment he finished, someone else shot back. If we raise it now, what happens the next time this occurs? We raise it again? This will only make them greedy. The first speaker slammed his hand on the table. So what's your brilliant idea? Our factories are producing new inventory every single day. Before long, we're going to have a massive inventory crisis. That's the real disaster. The words inventory crisis hung in the air like a guillotine, pressing down on everyone. The chain reaction would be catastrophic. If distributors and stores refused to sell, inventory would pile up and their cash flow would cease. After a fierce but fruitless debate, no one had convinced anyone. Mr. Stewart finally chimed in. What if we try to find new partners? No one was optimistic about that plan. Rush had spread across the country so quickly not just because of its business strategy, but because of Ethan Jang's help. Now, Ethan could barely save himself, and the Jang Corporation was in turmoil. The executives who had been friendly with Rush had all been demoted in varying degrees. Talking about market expansion now was a fool's errand. Boss, Laura said, her gaze fixed on Leo, who was still calmly sipping his coffee. You already have a plan, don't you? She was starting to feel a little confused herself. This was his baby, after all. Leo set his coffee cup down on the table, interlaced his fingers, and rested his chin on his hands. He scanned the room, taking in the scene. Some faces were red with anger and frustration. Others looked completely detached, doodling in their notebooks. Russia's success today is the result of everyone's hard work, Leo began, his speech a tired cliché. He went on for a while, thanking a laundry list of people, stopping just short of bursting into tears. In summary, he said absolutely nothing. The others listened patiently. Finally, Leo simply threw his hands up. The crisis we're facing is a tough one, and I don't have an easy solution, he admitted. Given the circumstances, I won't stop anyone who wants to leave. For those who stay, I can't make any promises. Bottom line is this. If you leave now, I'll give you a generous severance package. If you stay, I can't guarantee I'll be able to make payroll in a few months. With that, Leo stood up. I'm going to use the restroom. You all think it over. From its inception, Rush had hired anyone with talent to fuel its rapid growth. The result was a bloated organization filled with people coasting by. The most critical issue was that some were collecting high salaries while doing next to nothing, possessing zero loyalty to the company. Leo had long wanted to streamline the staff, but layoffs came with hefty severance costs and risked tanking morale, potentially alienating even the loyal old-timers who might see him as ruthless. After Leo left, the room erupted into chatter again. Laura, you know the boss well. Do you think he's telling the truth? The man sitting next to her, another regional manager, asked with a complicated expression. Laura stared at the door, lost in thought. She just shook her head. I guess. So, another person leaned in and whispered to her. Laura, what do you say we all leave together? A lot of other brands are hiring, especially that new one. I hear they're offering very generous packages to people from Rush. What do you think? Laura shot him a glare and answered decisively. Not interested. Undeterred by her rejection, the man moved on to whisper to others. Mr. Stewart, sitting across from Laura, sighed. It was true. Sharing wealth was easy. Sharing hardship was nearly impossible. From the looks of it, that guy had been paid off. He was probably getting a handsome finder's fee for every person he poached. Stewart shook his head and sighed again. It was so obvious. The competition was coming directly for Rush. Not only were they copying the strategy, but they were now sending recruiters to poach their senior management. About 10 minutes later, Leo returned. The moment he entered, the room fell silent again. You're all still here, Leo joked. No one dared to respond. Just then, someone walked in carrying a thick stack of contracts. For those who want to leave, you can go process your resignation now, Leo announced. I won't force anyone. If you don't want to go, if you're willing to ride this out with me, then. He paused. If you don't mind, I'll need you to sign a non-compete agreement. As soon as he said that, the room exploded. Laura quickly sent him a text message. Is this really the right move? You're basically pushing him out the door. Leo glanced at his phone, then set it aside without replying. He just gave her a look, a subtle signal to relax. Seeing this, Laura didn't care about propriety anymore. Right there in front of everyone, she grabbed one of the so-called non-compete agreements and started reading. It was just as he'd predicted. If they were merely hesitant before, the words non-compete agreement solidified their decision. Signing that contract meant they wouldn't be able to work in the industry for a significant period of time. I'm leaving. I'm sorry, mister. White. Goodbye, boss. One by one, they left. The conference room, once filled with 20 people, was now left with only 8 or 9. They were all familiar faces, mostly the old guard from the original garment factory. Only a few were newer hires. Are you sure? Leo asked the remaining group. You might want to reconsider. With fewer people, the room felt much more spacious. Mr. Stewart seemed more comfortable. Hearing Leo's question, he didn't hold back. Leo, we all got rich following you. A non-compete? We'll sign it. Don't you worry. Even if Rush really can't make payroll, we won't pressure you. We'll stick it out until the very end. What's that phrase you use? Right, running on passion? Laura burst out laughing from across the table. She tossed one of the contracts she'd been holding at him. I don't think he'll be needing your passion. Mr. Stewart was confused. What did she mean? Leo just rolled his eyes at Laura. You talk too much. Perhaps it was Leo's infectious confidence, but Laura felt emboldened. She let out a cackle, covering her mouth. Leo waved to his assistant, gesturing for the contracts to be distributed. The non-compete was only one part. The other documents were a profit-sharing agreement and a revised salary structure. Leo, if we do this, we might have a cash flow problem, Mr. Stewart said. He wasn't in finance, but he knew Rush's accounts were running lean. Although they had been profitable, Leo had loaned a large chunk of the company's money to Silver Fir Capital. And Silver Fir was in the middle of a major play. It needed every penny. Just as Leo was about to explain, Julian Jang finally arrived, fashionably late. With him was Ms. Jang, the company's CFO. She had been the accountant at the garment factory before Leo brought her over to Rush, only to later reassign her from headquarters, claiming her skills weren't a good fit. Ms. Jang, what are you doing here? Mr. Stewart asked, surprised. Ms. Jang glanced at Leo, then she and Julian found empty seats. Well, Julian began, grabbing a bottle of water from the table and chugging it. Leo arranged it. He looked at Leo, shaking his head. You're unbelievable. You actually saw this coming from a mile away. Now, everyone was even more confused. Ms. Zhang picked up a stack of financial reports and passed them around. These are Rush's real sales figures, she announced. Everyone's been wondering why other regions have one division, but the West Coast has two. That's because from the very beginning, Mr. White tasked the West Coast with not only expanding our physical stores, but also managing our online marketplace. Before all this, we had already secured partnerships with Alibaba and, more importantly, with Amazon in the U.S. and abroad. The domestic online market is decent and growing, but you should really look at the Amazon numbers. Even with tariffs, the sales data is solid. She paused, a small smile playing on her lips. We can't compare with the international giants, of course, but our combination of low prices and high quality has built us a strong reputation. We have a 98% positive feedback rating and a high rate of repeat customers. Mr. Stewart was completely floored. When it hit him, he slapped the table. I was just wondering why our tax bill was so much higher lately. I was about to ask you if we should look into it. He, the general manager, had been kept in the dark. This was the benefit of sole proprietorship, absolute authority. Even the GM wasn't privy to everything. If there were multiple shareholders, it would be a different story. Major decisions would require board approval. Financial data would have to be disclosed, and nothing could be kept secret. Leo held up a hand for silence. Online is a great sales channel, he said, then paused. Julian, thank you. Julian had been the one to set up these channels. Before partnering with Leo, he'd already been exploring the potential of e-commerce. Julian just waved a hand, telling him not to mention it. Leo smiled. Right? Thanks could wait until they were drinking tonight. And by then, he might be using different words. Something like, I'm sorry. Shaking his head, he continued. But even with our current production speed, online sales won't solve the whole problem. For now, don't worry about the partners. For any who unilaterally terminated their contracts while still within the agreement period, sue them. Mr. Stewart, I need you to arrange for the establishment of a charitable foundation in Rush's name. We will donate all of our excess inventory in batches to underfunded schools and rural community centers. For free. Mr. Stewart nodded vigorously, scribbling in his notebook. Should we follow the lead of other charities and print a donation from the Rush Foundation on the items? It would be good advertising. Leo rejected the idea immediately. No, we just need to make a tiny distinction on the logo, something that separates it from our commercial products. Something you wouldn't notice at a glance, but would see if you looked closely. Got it, Mr. Stewart replied. The Rush logo was applied just before shipping, so the stockpiled inventory was still unlabeled. It would be an easy change. Our competitors' biggest challenge will be brand promotion, Leo continued. They're no doubt already preparing their ad campaigns. They'll likely try to smear us with subtle comparisons, not naming us directly, but making it obvious who they're talking about. So, we need to strike first and shape the narrative. Julian looked thoughtful. He seemed to get it, but not completely. After a moment, he clapped his hands. You mean we create our own buzz online first? We get ahead of it by posting from a third-party perspective, objectively analyzing how Rush's rapid growth has stepped on some toes, and predicting that someone will inevitably try to slander us for commercial gain. Leo nodded. Exactly. And we're not idiots. The analysis has to be fair and balanced. It has to look like it was written by a genuinely neutral party. Julian couldn't help but applaud. Brilliant. People are creatures of habit. They stick with their first impression. If we plant the idea that someone is going to maliciously slander Rush, then when the real smear campaign hits, people will automatically cast our competitor in that role. Mr. Stewart, while impressed, still saw the core problem. But Leo, what about our brick-and-mortar sales? Our official stores are only in major cities and a few regional hubs. If our distributors and partners bail, we'll lose huge chunks of the market. And our factory contracts are long-term. We can't just donate everything forever. This was one thing Leo had never worried about. First, get a final count of the partners who are still with us, he told Mr. Stewart. For those who want out, just cut them loose. It's December. Time to publish our annual marketing and profit-sharing data. Let's show everyone just how much money they can make by working with us. The meeting ended, and everyone scattered to get to work. The huge conference room was now empty, except for Leo and Julian. Leo's phone buzzed. It was a text from Sophia. Got it done. You owe my mom dinner for this, Leo replied with a quick of course. Then he typed another message. Remember to pick me up tonight. Tonight, it's either he goes down or... Never mind. It just isn't going down, Sophia replied almost instantly. First, a series of ellipses, followed by 2 words. Okay, drink less. Julian felt Leo's eyes on him and shifted nervously, scratching his head with a weak smile. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll get going. You're busy. Leo didn't waste words. He picked up the half-full water bottle in front of him and chucked it straight at Julian. It flew with surprising force. Whoa, you're really throwing it. Julian dodged just in time. If that had hit him, it would have stung. Leo leaned back in his chair, watching him through narrowed, suspicious eyes. You weren't involved in this, were you? Julian knew what he was talking about. His expression grew complicated. I like to get my own hands dirty. Leo felt a surge of pity for him. So young, and his brain was already broken. He shot Julian a contemptuous look. Meeting his gaze, Julian flushed with embarrassment. So, you want to get some food? And what about my cousin? After a blow like that, you should be with her. We should invite her. Leo took a deep breath, pulled out a cigarette, and tossed the pack to Julian. Your brother was just here this morning hassling her, and now you want to show up? I'm not like him, Julian said quickly. A second later, as if remembering something, he corrected himself. On second thought, maybe it's better if we don't bring her along. Leo couldn't be bothered with him. He stood up, stretched, and headed for the door. Wait for me. Julian grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair and hurried after him. Look, Leo, I swear I had nothing to do with the family stuff. How about this? I'll down 3 shots as soon as we sit down, as an apology to you. Leo didn't even look at him. What are you apologizing for? It's none of your damn business. I'm apologizing for my brother. Okay. Not okay. Julian froze, his face a mask of anguish. Are you planning to destroy him? He didn't know Leo that well, but he'd seen enough of his methods to be wary. The guy wasn't just sharp. His plans were completely airtight. He could screw someone over and have them thanking him for it. With things having gone this far, Julian didn't believe for a second that Jesse would get away unscathed. Leo took offense at his choice of words, a wave of disgust washing over him. Destroy him? I'm not a pervert. Julian shook his head. Just go easy on him. When he gets his feelings hurt, he actually cries. Talking about his brother, Julian was a mix of anger and helplessness, the very picture of frustrated disappointment. Leo didn't want to dwell on it. He got into Spike's car. Are you coming or not? I'm coming. If it were an important client, Leo would have chosen the most luxurious hotel in town, regardless of whether the food was good. But for Julian, he didn't bother with the frills. Leo, I came all this way to see you, Julian complained, looking around at the noisy, bustling crowd. And you take me to a taco stand? They were at a stall on the University Strip, having set up their own folding table. Leo, busy with his phone, said flatly, eat it or don't. Seeing that Leo wasn't joking, Julian shut up. After a moment, he asked, so, Spike's not joining us? He's busy. Leo texted the address to Sophia, then yelled at the vendor. 4 cases of Bud Light to start. 4 cases. Julian flinched. You know what, Leo? I just remembered I have something to do. I should probably go. He started to get up but was yanked back down by Leo. You think you're leaving before you finish these 4 cases? Julian was already at a disadvantage today, probably feeling guilty about Chloe. He was being uncharacteristically meek with Leo, but 2 cases of beer each was terrifying. He tried to bargain. How about a little less? Drink first, talk later. Seeing no way out, Julian gave up with a sigh. Sometimes, to really taste the city, you had to hit the street stalls and back alleys. Leo had been to this night market many times. It was crowded, lively, and full of good food, and plenty of bad food, like this taco stand. The meat was over-salted and greasy. Leo couldn't stomach it. He bought 2 bags of boiled peanut from the next stall over and munched on them while watching Julian. You should eat something. Drinking on an empty stomach will get you drunk faster. Leo, please, just give me a break. Julian's face was a miserable frown. He let out a boozy burp. I know you want to stick up for Chloe, but you should go after the person responsible. Don't take it out on me. I can't handle it. Maybe it was the alcohol, but Julian became much more talkative. Do whatever you want to him. If you want me to be your mole, I'll do it. Just show a little mercy. He's my beloved brother, after all. The 4 cases were nearly empty. Leo didn't order more. He hadn't drunk much. Julian had been pouring most of it down his own throat. The guy was miserable, too, but he couldn't talk about it. He was caught between a rock and a hard place. He'd been wanting a drink for a while, but had no one to drink with. Coming to see Leo was partly to vent, but mostly to apologize on behalf of his brother. He was genuinely afraid Leo would obliterate him. Leo sighed. They were born from the same parents. How could they be so different? How should we get him back? Sophia had arrived sometime during their drinking session, sitting quietly at a nearby table and watching. Seeing Julian slumped over, she finally came closer. Leo shook his head. You believe he's drunk? That's a laugh. 4 cases of beer, and I bet half of it ended up watering the pavement. He kicked Julian's chair a couple of times. Seeing he couldn't keep up the act, Julian dropped it. He wasn't totally drunk, but the world was spinning and his head was throbbing. He looked up and grinned. Sophia's here. Quick, quick, have a seat. Want a drink? Leo rolled his eyes. Sophia just laughed. I'll pass. It's getting late. Shouldn't we be heading back? Leo got a room for you. Julian heard this and sighed dramatically. Man, why can't I ever meet a girl as good as you? Leo shot him a warning glance. That's enough. With all your ridiculous drama, You think you deserve to meet someone like her? Julian bristled. And you do? You deserve her? Leo grabbed Sophia's hand and waved it in front of Julian's face. What do you think? Sophia covered her mouth, hiding a smile. She gently pulled her hand back and poured Leo a cup of hot water. After he drank it, she said, "Let's go." Leo stood up and yelled to the owner, "Check, please." The busy owner called back without turning around. The young lady already paid. Julian looked even more incensed. Why? Why did Leo get to have Sophia? After dropping Julian off at the hotel, Leo let him go up alone. He wanted to stay downstairs and have a smoke first. Sophia, naturally, stayed with him. Seeing his somber mood, she stood there quietly. The December night was already bitingly cold. Sophia was bundled in a black down jacket with a knit hat that had two fluffy balls dangling on either side. She had gloves on, too, but despite the layers, a gust of wind made her shiver. "You're an idiot," Leo said to her. "A drunk person doesn't feel the cold, but you do." Sophia just kept smiling. "I'm not cold when you're here." Leo rolled his eyes. He gave up on the cigarette and cupped her face in his hands. Her skin was ice cold, and she claimed she wasn't cold. "Come on, you goof." Sophia didn't object to the nickname. Whatever he said, she accepted. The hotel was empty of guests, but still brightly lit. The official story was that it was closed for renovations, though there wasn't a hint of construction. "Chloe is still worried about her dad," Sophia said softly as they rode the elevator up. "If you weren't here, she would have already flown to see him." Sophia sighed. Even the most cheerful person could be consumed by melancholy when faced with a crisis. Thank goodness she had Leo. "You're not going to believe this, but I have a feeling Ethan did this on purpose," Leo mused. "His goal is probably to clean house at the Jang Corporation. The company has become too bloated, too unwieldy. I don't know the full extent of their debt, but it can't be good. Otherwise, why would they let Grayson Gu and his people get a foot in the door? Ethan is giving up shares, but he might also be offloading debt." Sophia stared at him. After a long moment, she sighed. "Looks like you've had too much to drink. You never used to talk to me about business stuff like this." Leo just shrugged. "Just analyzing. You know, that whole master strategist, winning battles from 1,000 miles away vibe? Isn't that incredibly attractive?" Sophia smiled dreamily and wrapped her arms around his neck. "You've always been incredibly attractive." Her praise sent a jolt through him. Just then, the elevator doors opened. Standing right, there was a yawning Gabby. Seeing Leo and Sophia in an embrace, she immediately covered her eyes, though she peeked through a crack in her fingers. "Hey, Leo, you're back. Where are you going?" Leo asked. Sophia quickly retracted her hands, stuffing them in her pockets. Once again, the picture of a poised and proper young lady. "Oh, Gabby said, Chloe's hungry. I'm going downstairs to get her something to eat. The hotel used to offer 24-hour room service, but not recently. If you got hungry at night, you had to go out." "All right. Hurry back and be safe." "Okay." Gabby waved and walked past them, one entering the elevator as the others exited. Back in the suite, Chloe looked like she had just woken up. Her eyes were red and swollen, her hair slightly messy. She looked completely drained. It was the first time Leo had ever seen her like this. She was usually so meticulous about her appearance, always wanting him to see her at her best. When she saw Leo and Sophia return, her lips parted as if she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Leo sat down beside her and put a hand on her shoulder. Sophia, seeing this, turned her head away. She spotted some apples on a table and went to peel one. "Leo, is there any news?" Chloe finally asked. She had waited all day, and still nothing. He was her last hope. "We'll have an answer by tomorrow morning. Just get some sleep. It'll be okay." Chloe knew he was just trying to comfort her. She slowly leaned her head against his shoulder. "Leo, if there's still no news tomorrow, I want to go." "Okay," Leo agreed without hesitation. "I'll go with you." Sophia continued to peel the apple as if she hadn't heard a thing. When she was done, she cut it in half and handed one piece to Chloe. Leo reached for the other half, but all he received was a sharp glare from Sophia, who then took a defiant bite out of it right in front of him. Leo could only retract his hand, defeated. Seeing him get shot down, a small, weary smile finally touched Chloe's lips. After chatting with her for a while longer, Gabby returned with takeout. Leo decided it was time to leave. "Get some sleep," he said. After the door clicked shut, Chloe looked at Sophia. "Sophia, thank you." It wasn't clear what she was thanking her for. After she said it, they both fell silent. The atmosphere grew awkward. Gabby, who had been cracking sunflower seeds nearby, couldn't stand it anymore. She quickly made an excuse. "I'm going to go use the restroom outside. I'm not used to the toilet in this room." And with that, she fled, fast and without a moment's hesitation. Sophia was still Sophia. Gentle, quiet Sophia. She looked at Chloe calmly. Actually, I should be the one saying I'm sorry. Chloe managed to smile. It was strained, but it was a smile. There's no right or wrong when it comes to love. The suite had plenty of spare rooms, but Leo had no intention of staying the night. He didn't want to get involved in the Jang Corporation's business. But the people who had framed him before, he wouldn't let a single one of them off the hook. Not even if Julian had said he was his beloved brother. Leo figured it was fine. He'd just make Julian pay for it. Leo, I thought you went to bed, so I didn't want to bother you, Spike said when he answered the phone. He had been about to fall asleep himself. He hadn't gotten much rest these past few days. Following Leo was great in every way, except for the constant stream of tasks. The crazy part was, he seemed to be perfectly willing to work himself to exhaustion. Leo felt a pang of guilt, but he pushed it aside. How's it going? He asked directly. Talk of business woke Spike right up. Richard Chien is definitely here, trying to set up a couple of garment factories. He's pretty close to signing the contracts. And there's been a huge shakeup in the Jang Corporation's leadership. Almost all of Ethan Jang's loyalists have been replaced. Leo wasn't surprised. It was the oldest story in the book, A New King Meant a New Court. That group was planning to completely remake the company while Ethan was away. Even if he returned, with his powers stripped away, he'd have no one left to command. But that was Ethan's problem. Leo didn't care. What about Jesse Jiang? Richard Chien was probably untouchable for now. He'd start with Jesse. The guy was stupid. Easy prey. Boss, the university got in touch. Laura intercepted Leo the moment he walked into her office. They're inviting us to the winter formal to thank us for the partnership. Are we going? Leo asked without a second thought. Of course, Laura replied, already pouring him a cup of tea. Her eyes twinkled with mischief. You go, make an appearance on stage, and I'll have the host make a special announcement that you're still single. The guys at the U of O will lose their minds. They'll be even more eager to sign on with us. She slid the cup toward him, her tone turning wry. You think everyone's as shameless as you? Leo bristled. What do you mean, shameless? He picked up the teacup, took a sip, and immediately spit it back out. Huh. He slammed the cup down, indignant. And for the record, it's not being shameless. It's called not wanting to work so hard anymore. Laura couldn't be bothered to argue. She changed the subject. Fine. I'll reply to the university president. By the way, do you want to go? This is a great chance to boost your ego. You could probably pick up a few new admirers. Leo was almost tempted, but he shook his head. Nah, too much of a good thing is still a problem. I'm good where I am right now. He paused. You didn't call me here just for this, did you? Laura's main job was running Silver Fur Capital, but her side hustle was helping manage the Oregon division of Rush Sportswear. And then there was the unspoken third job, the one everyone knew about but never mentioned. She was, for all intents and purposes, Leo's de facto chief of staff. She'd been vague on the phone, insisting he come in person. At his question, she handed him a manila folder. Information on the employees who resigned yesterday. All mid to upper-level management. The recent grads from the university have drive, but they don't have the experience to fill these roles. How do you want to handle the vacancies? This was really a question for Mr. Stewart, the regional manager, but he was swamped with a mountain of tasks Leo had assigned him the day before. He'd had to ask Laura to relay the message. Leo glanced at the folder for a second before tossing it back onto the desk. Laura, if I have to figure this stuff out, what am I paying you all for? He'd always defined his role as a human rubber stamp, but lately he was feeling less and less like a simple tool. It was rare for Laura to see him lose his temper, even slightly. Her smile vanished, replaced by a serious expression. Understand. Then, she continued, that's just one thing. There's something else I need your decision on. The bike share program is fully operational across the university district. Now other universities in the state are contacting me, asking if we're interested in expanding. What do you think? She knew Leo's bike share venture wasn't about profit. It was a clever marketing ploy to drive traffic to his new market at Mill District project. Even though the market wasn't fully open, foot traffic in the area had visibly increased. With other schools now proactively reaching out, she wasn't sure how to proceed. Do it, Leo said, his answer sharp and immediate. Just as he spoke, his phone rang. Seeing an international number, he instinctively hit decline. Too many scammers. But the caller was persistent and dialed again. Leo answered, his voice thick with impatience. Hello. Silence on the other end. Hello, he repeated. A cough, then a familiar, deep voice. Speak English. Holy crap. Leo shot up from his chair, a jolt of adrenaline hitting him. Mr. Jiang, you can make calls? Yes. Ethan Jiang's voice was as low and steady as ever, as if nothing had changed. I heard you, and Chloe bought tickets to come here. Leo's heart hammered, but he forced himself to calm down. He sank back into his chair and took a sip of the now perfectly warm tea. Mr. Jang, you'd better have a damn good reason for me to cancel those tickets. The timing was too perfect. The call came just after he and Chloe had decided to go. Ethan's intention was crystal clear. He didn't want Chloe going to Seattle. If I didn't use a little bait, how would I get the rats to come out of hiding? Ethan explained. And the Jang Corporation has a cash flow problem. My original plan was to squeeze some emergency funds out of Richard Chien. But then things got complicated. Leo knew what he meant. The Hanlon group had gotten involved, and both sides had flipped the table. He stayed quiet, letting Ethan continue. I sensed this was coming, so I made some arrangements beforehand. Ethan's voice trailed off, then returned firm. The point is, under no circumstances can Chloe give up the shares she holds. They want her to come over there because the moment she lands, things will be out of her control. After hanging up, Leo's expression was grim. His future father-in-law was one sharp operator. He'd half-joked about Ethan going bankrupt and coming to work for him, but that was clearly a fantasy. The man had already transferred his key assets. The Jang Corporation was now just a hollow shell, laden with bank loans and propped up solely by the profitable divisions still controlled by Chloe's shares. And what was that last thing Leo thought he'd overheard before Ethan hung up? Something about those shares originally being Chloe's wedding gift. Laura, let me ask you something. Laura had been standing by silently during the call, her own shock palpable. She snapped back to attention. HM, you're from around Riverbend, right? Leo asked. Yeah, why? So, around here, you have prenups, trust funds, stuff like that, Leo began. If, and this is a big if I just had the wedding, but we didn't, sign the legal paperwork, could I still get my hands on the gift? Laura was smart. Connecting the dots from the phone call, she understood immediately. She gave him a cold, appraising look. What do you think? If you're really asking me, Leo said, a picture of innocence, I'd say, of course. In your dreams, she scoffed. No marriage, no marital assets. Leo already knew that. His father was a lawyer, after all, but hearing it from Laura still felt like a punch to the gut. He deflated like a balloon. Damn, I really thought I could retire early and be a kept man. Guess I still have to rely on myself. His mood, however, quickly rebounded. He picked up his phone and dialed Chloe, his tone firm and commanding. Hey, beautiful. Cancel the plane tickets. Then come meet me for dinner. Someone just mentioned your wedding gift. I think we need to talk. Chloe was stunned for a moment when Leo mentioned the wedding gift, but it didn't take long for the implications to sink in. She shot upright in bed. Where are you? The office. I'll be right there. Leo heard the dial tone and couldn't help but smile. It was the first time she'd ever been in such a hurry to hang up on him. Laura, still standing beside him, glanced at him with an unreadable expression. Are you that bored? Leo asked her. Laura rolled her eyes and gestured to the mountain of files on her desk. It would take her days to get through them all. The silence spoke volumes. Then what are you waiting for? Leo prodded. Laura slammed a folder down on the desk. This is my office. Leo feigned innocence. All right, my bad. He stood up to leave, then paused, a generous mood striking him. Chloe has that local link site, and it's doing pretty well. It has a job board. Post our open positions on there. I'll ask her to block listings from any competing companies for a while. Laura stared at him, a half-impressed, half-disgusted look on her face. Only he would come up with something so shameless. But she had to admit it was practical. So many people look for jobs online now. A short-term block would mean that anyone in the area looking for a job in their sector would only have one choice. Rush. Scruples aside, she nodded. Got it. Too busy to see him out. She just waved a hand, dismissing him. With the recent turmoil, Rush was a ghost of its former self. The once bustling office building wasn't empty, but it was eerily quiet. Leo didn't mind. Glory attracts false friends, but only in twilight do you see the faithful. The ones who stayed would be the foundation of the company's future. Mr. White, inspecting the troops again. The voice startled Leo. He turned, surprised. Hey, you're actually here. He vaguely remembered the woman. Jenny Lee. She had helped him get that DV camcorder from the reporter, Liam Bell. It was a simple transaction. In exchange, he'd given her a cushy, do-nothing job at the company. Laura had mentioned offhandedly that Jenny rarely showed up, much to the envy of her colleagues, who whispered that she must have a relationship with the boss. The fact that she was here now was a genuine shock. Jenny shrugged, a slight frown on her face. It's not every day you find a company that pays you to do nothing. I'd hate to see it go under, so I figured I'd see if I could help. If you pull through, I can go back to my life of leisure. Leo gave her a thumbs up. Great attitude. Keep it up. Jenny smiled. Honestly, I didn't have high hopes. I heard the competition was ruthless, but seeing you looking so calm, I suddenly feel a lot better. Leo took a half step back, creating a little more distance between them. The woman had a habit of getting closer as she talked. He could smell the heavy scent of her perfume. It's a little early to feel better. You get back to it. I gotta go. Jenny saw his retreat and covered her mouth with a hand to hide a laugh. All right, boss. See you later. Later. Leo walked past her, his pace quick. He was worried she might trip and fall into him. On any other day, he wouldn't have cared. He wouldn't be the one at a disadvantage. But not today. Her was too strong. If it rubbed off on him, he'd have a hell of a time explaining it to Chloe. Not worth the trouble. He waited downstairs for a few minutes before Chloe's massive Land Rover pulled up. She spotted him and stopped right in front of him. Luckily, in 2004, there wasn't much traffic, and illegally parking in front of an office building didn't cause a traffic jam. Leo, did my dad call you? Chloe asked, rushing over to him as soon as she got out of the car. He nodded and reached out to ruffle her hair. It was freshly washed and soft. Don't worry. He's fine. He should be back in the country in a few days. Worried he might be lying to comfort her, she pressed. Then why hasn't he contacted me? Leo, ever casual, was tired of standing. He plopped down on the edge of a large stone planter and patted the spot next to him. If it were anyone else, Chloe would have refused. But this was Leo. With him, she didn't mind. Once she was seated, Leo took out his phone and dialed the international number. It was answered on the first ring. He handed the phone to Chloe. Dad! The moment she heard Ethan's voice, she cried out, tears streaming down her face. She had been holding so much in for the past 2 days. If it hadn't been for Leo, she might have already broken down. I'm not crying. I'm not, she said, likely in response to Ethan's comforting words, wiping her tears as she spoke. After a few more minutes, her expression slowly returned to normal. When she hung up, she handed the phone back to Leo. He said your call logs are easy to pull from the phone company, so he didn't contact you directly, Leo explained. Your dad has everything under control. You can relax. Ethan had already told her most of this on the call. Her lingering sadness was just the weight of family drama. Leo shook his head. That was their business to sort out. His thoughts cleared. Chloe looped her arm through his. Jerk, I'm hungry. Buy me dinner. Leo shot her a look. Who's a jerk? You get one more chance to rephrase that. Chloe smiled sweetly. Then what should I call you? Her voice was crisp and melodious, with a hint of playfulness. Dar. Ling. The sound sent a pleasant shiver through him. He was very satisfied. That's better. Approve. Chloe laughed and pressed the car keys in his hand. You're driving. Leo started to refuse, but she cut him off. This thing is a pain to drive. I only bought this gas guzzler because you talked me into it. Are you trying to back out of your responsibility now? Leo shut his mouth. Getting a free Land Rover out of the deal wasn't so bad. It was clear that Chloe's mood had improved dramatically. Gone was the gloom of yesterday, replaced by a cheerful chatter that filled the car. Leo could keep up with most of her topics, but then she dropped a bomb. Leo, Sophia, and I talked for hours last night. We talked about freshman year, senior year, and now. Leo pretended not to care, subtly easing his foot off the gas. What could you possibly have to talk about for that long? Chloe stared ahead, a small smile playing on her lips. We talked about life, the future. We talked about mountains and rivers, poetry and faraway places. She turned to look at him, then paused deliberately. Her silence made Leo's heart leap into his throat. He almost slammed on the brakes. Seeing him so obviously curious, yet trying to act aloof, was amusing to her. She continued, we talked about maybe getting a little house in the country someday. Plant flowers, get a dog, raise some chickens. We'd watch the green shoots of spring turn into the gold of autumn, talking about the rest of our lot among the falling leaves. We'd feel the summer rain, the evening breeze, listen to the cicadas at midnight and the frogs in the pond. We even talked about winter, planting a whole hillside of winter sweet, sitting by the fire. It would be even better with snow, a whole world of white. Under the falling snow, our hair would turn white together. All right, even Leo was moved. He pulled the car over to the side of the road. Under Chloe's puzzled gaze, he said, call Sophia. I have something to ask her. Chloe blinked, confused. What is it? Leo pulled the handbrake. Just do it. Put it on speaker. Chloe pouted, but did as she was told. Chloe? What's up? Sophia's voice was drowsy, as if she'd just woken up. Before Chloe could answer, Leo's voice cut in. What are you doing? Sleep? Sophia yawned. It sounded like she'd had a late night. What's up? Spit it out. I hear you two are planning to build a little house in the country. Sophia paused for 2 seconds, then burst out laughing. Yeah, Chloe told you? Did she also tell you we save a spot for you? Since the call was on speaker, Chloe heard it too. Looking guilty, she quickly turned her head to stare out the window. Don't ask me, I don't know anything. Now Leo was even more curious. How thoughtful. Sophia's sleepiness was gone, replaced by a squawking laugh. Yep, we saved you a spot right next to Buddy and Scout's doghouses. Leo paused, then let out a cold laugh. Yeah, you even have the dogs' names picked out. 2 of them. Click. Sophia had hung up, apparently unwilling to discuss the topic further. The move left Leo dumbfounded. That woman actually dared to hang up on me. Chloe was giggling beside him. She was already beautiful, but her laugh made her even more so. At least, that's what Leo thought. Noticing his gaze fixed on her, Chloe felt no shyness at all, her eyes curving into crescents. Am I pretty? Leo released the handbrake, shifted into gear, and hit the gas. Too drained to answer. He remembered that Sophia liked spicy food, while Chloe preferred lighter, fresher flavors, like Cantonese cuisine. He found a busy Cantonese restaurant and, after they were seated, ordered several of her favorite dishes. While they waited, he slid his arm around her shoulder, pulling her close. The intimate gesture sent a wave of sweetness through Chloe. Without even a hint of feigned modesty, she rested her head on his shoulder. Chloe, just asking, Leo said softly. Those shares you have, what companies are they for exactly? The Jang Corporation was a sprawling conglomerate with a complex share structure. At first, Leo had assumed Chloe had nothing. He now realized how naive he'd been. As Ethan Jang's only treasured daughter, the kind you protect from every fall and shield from every harsh word, how could he not have given her a safety net? And from the sounds of it, it was a very big one. Chloe shook her head. I don't know. You know, I'm not involved in the company's operations. Dad wanted me to get involved before. She seemed to remember something and abruptly stopped talking. She didn't need to say it. Leo could guess. Over the summer, Ethan had already started making arrangements for Chloe to rotate through various departments, aiming to get her ready to take the reins. But because of Leo, she had fought with her father, even declaring she didn't want his fortune. Seeing her stubbornness, Ethan had temporarily backed off. Leo sheepishly rubbed his nose. He felt a little guilty. This foolish girl. He couldn't let anyone else bully her. Chloe spoke again. Darling, she asked, if I didn't have those shares, would you still like me? The old Chloe would never have asked such a question. But she had been through so much in the last few days. Blood relatives could turn on each other over stock shares, something she could never have imagined before. So she wanted to know Leo's answer. Leo poured her a cup of tea. I didn't know you had them when I first met you, did I? He hadn't answered directly, but Chloe was more than satisfied. He was right. He hadn't known. Oh, and Dad had another message for me to pass on to you. Leo frowned, worried Ethan was about to say something outrageous. What is it? Why didn't he tell me himself? Chloe's eyes curved into crescent moons. He said if he told you himself, he might die of anger. Leo blinked, signaling for her to continue. Chloe giggled first. He said if Rush doesn't make it through this, he'll give you a new company. One with a market value that's not just equal to Rush, but higher. Just one condition. She leaned in. You have to bully me less. Leo was interested at first, but halfway through he lost interest. He appreciated the sentiment. But Rush was only going to get better. He looked at Chloe. Chloe, do me a favor and pass a message back to your dad. Tell him I'm bullying you for life. The kind you can't run away from. Chloe felt there was something wrong with the way he said it, but she had no desire to correct him. Are you sure you don't want to consider it? That's a whole company. She lowered her voice, as if sharing a secret, and pouted. Why don't you just agree? You can still bully me. I won't tell. Seeing the half-smile on Leo's face, Chloe realized she might have been a bit too forward. She stuck out her tongue and quickly looked away, not daring to meet his eyes, afraid he'd laugh at her. It was an incredibly cute and playful gesture. Leo, of course, wouldn't tease her. With news from Ethan, Chloe's appetite had returned in full force. After dinner, Leo drove her back to the hotel. The university entrance was still swarming with reporters, so it wasn't safe for her to go back to her dorm. Besides, if Richard Chien's people noticed a change in her behavior, it could compromise Ethan's plans. That was the very reason Ethan hadn't wanted to tell her anything in the first place. The young woman wore her heart on her sleeve. Chloe understood. As much as she disliked staying in a hotel, she agreed. Fortunately, Leo promised to take her on a trip after this was all over, giving her something to look forward to. The next few days were still grim for Rush Sportswear. When you lose the market, you lose the market. But it was all within Leo's expectations. Besides, Rush was no longer his only asset. Even if it went under, the impact wouldn't be devastating. It would just sting for a while. Boss, after a few days of buzz, especially after last night, that article has created a huge reaction on the forums and message boards. Laura Ian reported from her office. There's some negativity, but most of the voices are supporting a domestic brand like ours. Ing was beside her and dutifully refilled Leo's water glass. Leo seemed to ignore Laura's report, turning to tease Ing. So, what do you think? All this business stuff is a pain, isn't it? The net cafe was more laid back, right? Ing was now learning corporate management under Laura's wing. The former scene girl had undergone a complete transformation. Dressed in professional attire that showed off her figure, she wasn't stunningly beautiful, but she had a fresh girl-next-door charm. Ing smiled faintly. It's been great, actually. A real eye-opener. It's more tiring than the net cafe, but I'm just as happy. Leo rolled his eyes. He had no idea how Laura had managed to brainwash the girl into thinking the corporate grind was some kind of blessing. But for an employee like this, Leo had only praise. Keep it up, work hard. I'll give you a raise in a while. Leo could now make empty promises with the best of them. It cost him nothing. It was the kind of line that only worked on rookies, and Ing was just that. She thanked him. Her face lit up with surprise. I'll do my best. Watching her brimming with enthusiasm, Leo felt a sense of approval. Only then did he turn to the impatient Laura. Right, what were you saying? Laura rolled her eyes, muttering internally about what she'd done to deserve a boss like him. It was his company, but he acted like he couldn't care less. I was talking about the article. Are they really going to release an ad to smear us? After their last meeting, Leo had arranged for a preemptive strike. Now, overnight, their planned article had become a hot topic on several major online forums. News outlets had picked it up, and experts were weighing in, calling it a natural market phenomenon. When a product gets popular, negative rumors follow, often spread by competitors. They argued for policies to curb such unfair competition. The sentiment resonated, especially since one of the most vocal proponents was the president of the University of Oregon's Business School, a respected economist with countless successful students who echoed his views. When it came to business, Leo dropped his casual demeanor. It'll probably come out tomorrow. Now Laura was shocked. How do you know that? An ad campaign's launch schedule should be a trade secret. How could Leo possibly know? Leo put on a mysterious air. Who's been aggressively poaching our talent and stealing our market share lately? Laura answered without thinking. That new clothing brand the Jang Corporation just acquired. What's it called? Enjoy Sportswear. Leo snapped his fingers. Exactly. Their ad was already submitted. It just got held up in the review process. It was scheduled to run in a week. Laura was even more confused. But you said tomorrow. There's one running tomorrow, too. Leo said matter-of-factly. I made it for them. He added, oh, I forgot to tell you. I secured their regional distribution rights and their advertising rights. Leo knew that this was probably too much for Laura's mind to process. He pulled a file from his bag and tossed it on the table. Laura, ever the impatient one, tore it open. The more she read, the deeper her frown became. After a long moment, she sighed. It's not that Jesse Jang is an idiot. It's that you're a thief. Leo cleared his throat. Watch your wording. After learning about the power shift at the Jang Corporation, Leo had Spike and Connor's son reach out to Jesse Jang. As luck would have it, this new clothing brand, Enjoy Sportswear, was Jesse's brainchild. He was convinced that anything Leo could do, he could do better, especially since he had the full backing of the Jang Corporation, whereas Leo had only gotten verbal support from Ethan. But whether Jesse was truly stupid or just not obviously smart was up for debate. He couldn't even properly copy a successful model. A few boozy dinners, a spa treatment, and a lot of empty flattery were all it took for him to hand over the Oregon distribution rights to Connor. He didn't even do a background check. The contract terms were harsh, but who cared? Contracts cut both ways. If Connor breached the agreement or failed to meet sales targets, he'd face a massive fine. But, by the same token, if the brand itself had problems that damaged normal business operations, Jesse's side would have to pay up. Boss, just tell me what you need me to do, Laura said. She'd learned her lesson. Just do what Leo said and don't ask questions. He'd probably already thought 10 steps ahead. Leo shrugged. Hire people, clear out inventory, run ads. Business as usual. Just follow the plan. The day before Leo met with Laura, Connor's son sat across from a beaming Jesse Jang in another high-rise office. Jesse was on top of the world. He'd gone from having a minority stake with no real power to being a project manager and the CEO of a clothing brand. From Vivian Chin's perspective, the Rush model was a goldmine. The key was that Rush had been built using the Jang Corporation's resources, yet the corporation wasn't seeing a dime. If you can't partner with them, eliminate them. Thus, Enjoy Sportswear was born. Connor, you're saying you can get the ad on air ahead of schedule? Jesse asked. His dislike for Leo fueled his dedication to taking down Rush. Poaching employees to cut them off at the knees was his idea. So was the ad campaign. But the TV station had told him their schedule was full for the next week. Now, hearing Connor say he had a way to run it early, his interest was piqued. He hadn't known Connor long, but he knew the man was well-connected in Oregon. More importantly, he thought Connor was a fool. Connor had signed a contract that every other regional distributor had balked at. In Jesse's mind, it was a no-lose situation. If the brand made money, great. If it didn't, Connor would be the one paying the price. Connor gave a sly grin. I can, but the ad content has to follow my proposal. Take a look. He handed a folder to Jesse. Jesse scanned the proposal. It focused on product features. It had some highlights, but not enough to be memorable. More importantly, it wasn't what Jesse wanted. Can this be changed? Jesse asked. Connor put on a conflicted expression. Seeing his hesitation, Jesse sensed an opening. This ad is fine, but it's not memorable. People will forget it as soon as they see it. The most important thing is to be remembered. After a long-winded lecture, Connor sighed and shook his head. Jesse, my friend at the TV station, helped me put this together. The length and content are pre-approved for immediate broadcast. If we change it, he trailed off, letting the unspoken implication hang in the air. They were both adults. They knew the unwritten rules of business. Why would his friend help him run an ad he hadn't produced and gotten paid for? Jesse laughed heartily. Don't you worry about that. I'll make sure your friend is well taken care of. Connor pretended to think it over, then said hesitantly, let me give him a call. Great. An external ad campaign required the approval of the company head. That was why Connor was bothering to play this game with Jesse. He needed Jesse to say the words and sign the papers for it to be legally binding. As for the phone call, he made one to the manager of a high-end spa, booking a private room for a celebration that night. After the call, he returned to the office. Jesse, I asked. It's possible, but what did you mean by memorable? Jesse leaned back in his executive chair, a smug look on his face. Comparison. We compare our product to similar ones, especially the popular ones. He lowered his voice. Like Rush. We deliberately highlight their weaknesses to showcase our strengths. It's called piggybacking. Connor feigned surprise. Wow, we can do that. But what if they sue? Jesse was dismissive. We just take the tags off and refer to them as a certain brand. Problem solved. Brilliant. Connor gave him a thumbs up. You're a genius, Jesse. I'll get right on it. Connor's efficiency was remarkable. Or rather, the ad was already finished, just waiting for Jesse's viewing. When he saw it, even Jesse was stunned. Both are sportswear, but a certain well-known brand has poor quality, high prices, and outdated styles. They dump their unsold inventory in rural towns at low prices. The ad showed 2 sets of clothes. The host pointed to one. We bought this in a small town. A lot of the locals there wear this brand. The logo on the shirt was pixelated, but the outline was unmistakably Rush. The Enjoy logo on the other shirt was crystal clear. A so-called fashion expert began to comment. The one next to the Enjoy shirt is so ugly. I never understood how clothes like that could get popular. I know, right? The material is terrible. You can't even compare it to Enjoy's. It's so baggy, no shape at all. And I hear it's expensive too. Expensive? Maybe in the city. It's dirt cheap in the countryside. Seeing Jesse staring, mesmerized, Connor asked with a sheepish grin, so what do you think, Jesse? Jesse nodded numbly. It's perfect. Connor smiled and produced the contract. Then please sign here, and I'll arrange the broadcast. The payment details are in the contract. When it came to signing legal documents, even an idiot like Jesse knew to be cautious. He picked it up and made a call. Send the legal team in. The lawyer arrived quickly, reviewed the contract, and said, Mr. Jang, there are no major issues. But there are 2 points to be aware of. First, it states that we are solely responsible for any legal disputes arising from this ad. Second, if this ad causes reputational damage to the advertising agency, we are also liable for their losses. Jesse glanced at the contract again. You've seen the ad proposal. Will there be any disputes? The lawyer took another careful look. The ad focuses on comparing similar products without explicitly naming the other brand, and key parts are blurred. The risk of a dispute is low. The only condition is that you have to ensure the item in question is, in fact, a commercial product. Jesse froze. Clothes that aren't a commercial product? Just as he was about to ask, Connor chimed in impatiently. So what's the verdict, Jesse? They're waiting for my reply. If not, we'll just have to wait until next week. The pressure got to Jesse. He didn't show his annoyance, but he frowned at the lawyer. The clothes we bought from Rush are commercial products, right? Yes. With that confirmation, Jesse signed his name. Take it. Connor grinned. For a second, he thought Jesse had actually gotten smarter. The clothes purchased from Rush were indeed commercial products. But the clothes donated by Rush had no commercial properties. By comparing his product to their charitable donations, Jesse had already lost, regardless of the outcome. But he was oblivious, gloating to himself. Leo White, let's see you get out of this one. You just got lucky, shamelessly latching on to Chloe to make a quick buck. You think you have any real talent? You're just a piece of trash. And Julian Jang is an idiot for ever believing in you. Connor, not yet out of earshot, quickened his pace, worried he might laugh out loud. Once he was out of the building, he called Leo. Boss, he called you trash and said Julian Jang is an idiot. Want me to send some guys to rough him up? Forget it, Leo replied calmly. Hill cried. Ma'am, I saw the ad. Please go ahead and arrange the broadcast. Thank you. Sophia's mother, the TV station executive, had called Leo after seeing the ad, which was clearly detrimental to Rush. Leo, of course, knew this, but politely told her it was fine. He added, I'll treat you to dinner over the holidays. Sophia's mother was much easier to deal with than Ethan Jang, who was always threatening to send people abroad. Of course, that had a lot to do with Sophia's independent nature. The holidays? Sophia, who had been leaning in to eavesdrop on the call, looked at Leo. When he hung up, she said, Who said I was taking you home for the holidays? Leo froze. Are you sure you don't want to reconsider? He asked tentatively. Sophia flashed a sly grin. It's not impossible. Depends on your performance. She walked away, hands behind her back, then glanced over her shoulder. Hurry up, big brother. Ever since she found out Chloe had started calling Leo darling, she'd stopped using the term herself. Thankfully, Leo didn't mind. He liked the sound of big brother. He had been busy for days and had neglected Sophia. Today, he had promised to spend time with her and had already picked a restaurant. Spicy fried chicken. MMM. While they were eating, Leo remembered something. Hey, that guy Grayson Goo. Do you have any detailed info on him? Leo didn't know the specifics of Ethan's plan, but the Jang Corporation was clearly in trouble. Vivian Chen and the others were hounding Chloe with increasing frequency. If they couldn't get her shares, they would be in a tough spot too. And Grayson Goo seemed to be right in the middle of it, attending important meetings and appearing in photos. His position seemed significant. Worse, he seemed very interested in Chloe. That alone wouldn't be a problem. Plenty of guys were interested in her. But Vivian was actively trying to set them up, and that's what pissed Leo off the most. He needed to know more. Sophia, having spent a lot of time with Chloe recently, was up to speed. Grayson Goo's family is from Los Angeles, she said, not surprised by the question. They have a huge business, mostly exporting cheap domestic goods and importing international machinery. Basically, if you're trying to import any high-end equipment, it's hard to avoid them. And lately, it seems they're looking to get into the domestic cell phone market. That's why they're cooperating with the Jang Corporation. Free labor for them, why not? Leo sighed. He'd been out of his depth. Import-export trade was a world he'd never even touched, not even in his past life. Now that he knew they were interested in the cell phone market, his path was clear. He'd just have to beat them to the punch. After all, who would have thought that the glorious Nokia would completely disappear from the public eye in just a few years, while a little-known company called Apple would rise to become the undisputed king? It would take time, but Leo wasn't in a hurry. Time was the one thing he had in abundance. But that was a long-term plan. For now, he asked Sophia, let's forget about his family for a second. What about the guy himself? What's he like? Is he an idiot? Sophia dabbed her lips with a napkin and shook her head. I'm not sure, but he's probably got something going for him. His family runs a traditional family business, and even though he's not the eldest son, he's always the one sitting next to his grandfather at events and banquets. You know what that means? Leo nodded. He'd seen enough movies to know how it worked. In those old, powerful families, primogeniture was everything. For the old man to favor Grayson meant he was the chosen successor. Suddenly, Sophia smiled. Oh, and remember how you asked if his family had a daughter? Leo blinked, confused. Did I ask that? Seeing his dumbfounded expression, Sophia's smile widened. She gently wiped a grain of rice from the corner of his mouth and poured him a cup of tea. Yes, you did. I remember. Seeing she wasn't angry, Leo offered a weak explanation. I was just asking randomly. Don't take it seriously. Sophia shrugged, pouting. But I did take it seriously. She didn't give him a chance to reply. He really does have an older sister. I hear she's gorgeous. Studying abroad. At this, Leo did a double take. Sophia's tone was off. Confirming his suspicion, she shook her head. Too bad. You don't have a chance. Leo lost his appetite. He put down his chopsticks and looked at Sophia. My dear Sophia, can't you be a little more territorial? Does this not bother you at all? Sophia propped her chin on her hands and looked at him quietly. It does. But I care about you more. Leo was speechless. After a moment of silence, he said, "I want some watermelon." "Okay," Sophia replied sweetly. It was December. Were they supposed to find watermelon? But when it came to Leo's requests, Sophia's first instinct was always to agree. After wandering through a department store for a while, they actually found a stall selling out-of-season fruit. They had watermelon. It wasn't sweet, but it was expensive. "Is it good?" Sophia asked him. "Anything from you is good." "Hee. Then you'd better eat it all." Leo was in a tough spot. Watermelon was incredibly filling. He sighed. "I have to meet Spike and the guys later. Want to come?" Showing Jesse the harsh reality of human nature with the clothing brand was just the first step. The main event was next, and he needed to plan it out with his crew. "Sure," Sophia agreed immediately. Leo was sure she had a class today. He must have remembered wrong. When Leo acquired Apex Construction with Ethan's help, he'd bought the Apex Tower along with it. Right now, the building was worth just over $10 million. In another decade, it would be worth several hundred million. The rate at which real estate prices were climbing was insane, especially in the downtown core of a major city. Leo's ambitions weren't that grand. A few dozen buildings like this to collect rent from would be enough. With money, you could buy a mountain and plan it full of winter sweet. You could live a life of leisure in a country cottage. Without money, it was all just a fantasy. Leo was very clear on this point. Standing at the base of the Apex Tower, Sophia seemed dazed. "Leo, how many businesses do you actually have?" She knew he was rich, but she'd never had a clear picture of the scale. After all, she wasn't after his money. She'd even joked about wanting him to go bankrupt so she could support him. Looking at it now, that seemed unlikely. Leo was very pleased with her expression. "So, are you satisfied with this empire I've built for you?" he said smugly. Sophia just sighed, though for what reason, he couldn't tell. There were only 3 people in the conference room: Hank Yu, Spike, and Connor's son. Before Leo arrived, the 3 of them were laughing and talking so loudly he could hear them down the hall. But the moment he walked in, they fell silent. Seeing Sophia with him, they quickly extinguished their cigarettes. Sophia knew they wouldn't be comfortable with her there. "I think I'll go for a walk nearby," she told Leo. "Call me when you're done." She had only come along to spend more time with him. She had no interest in the business itself. Leo knew her well enough to nod. "Don't go far." Sophia waved without looking back. I know. I'm not 3 years old. I won't get lost. I'm just worried," Leo called after her. After watching her leave, Leo entered the conference room. "Boss, are you sure you don't want to rough him up?" Connor asked as soon as he saw him. "He insulted you." Leo rolled his eyes. "A lot of people insult me. Am I supposed to beat them all up? Besides, there's no fun in a simple beatdown. It was just a suggestion." Seeing that Leo had a plan, Connor dropped it. "He doesn't actually have much power at the Jang Corporation," he continued. "If it wasn't for his father's backing, he wouldn't be where he is today. But that support isn't unconditional. The Enjoy brand and that part project he's leading are tests for him. You've already made plans for Enjoy, so we won't go into that. But the part project." At this, all 3 of them looked at Leo, waiting for his move. Leo thought for a moment. "Do you know how much cash his little Enjoy brand has on hand right now?" Leo wasn't a benevolent person. If he was going to teach Jesse a lesson, he wasn't just going to talk about it. He was going to take a bite out of him. A big one. Otherwise, what was the point? Connor actually knew this. Jesse had a loose tongue when he drank. Liquid cash is around $300,000. It was an old clothing brand they bought and rebranded, and they copied the Rush model, so their initial investment wasn't huge. The account balance is limited. It wasn't a small amount of money. Leo was tempted, but he felt it wasn't enough. The ad will just piss him off. Even if we win a lawsuit, the most we'd get is $100,000 in damages. I want more. Idiots like this were rare. He had to get as much as he could. If he didn't take it, someone else would. Although the Jang Corporation was in a tough spot, it was still a massive entity. A few $100,000 was nothing to them. Leo never expected to ruin Jesse with this alone. You had to take things one step at a time. Leo was patient. It was time to start collecting interest on the grievances from his past life. Has he been spending a lot lately? Leo asked Connor. The 2 of them had been inseparable recently, so Connor would know. A lot. A crazy amount, Connor replied immediately. Drops a few grand in nightclub like it's nothing. Whose money is he using? Leo pressed. I don't know, Connor said, looking puzzled. Boss, why are you suddenly asking about this? Leo crossed his legs, lost in thought. After a moment, he said, let me put it this way. When I was working with Julian Jang, he couldn't even pull together a few tens of thousands without calling his family. I did some digging, and their family is really strict about money with his generation. So where is Jesse getting all this cash? Hank Yu, sitting nearby, had a flash of insight. Boss, you think he might be embezzling company funds? Everyone was stunned. Even if a company was yours, you couldn't just use its money so casually. And the company wasn't entirely his. Leo held up a hand. It's just a guess. But true or not, that's our angle. Connor, it's time to let him experience the joy of spending money he doesn't have. Some things didn't need to be said aloud. Some people were just born to be villains. Connor let out a wicked laugh. Got it. Just as they were plotting, Connor's phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID and looked at Leo. Boss, it's Jesse. The room fell silent. Leo nodded. Connor answered, thoughtfully putting it on speaker. Connor, has that ad been broadcast yet? Can you pull it? Jesse's voice was frantic, but frantic was useless. Connor calmly replied, I don't think so. What's wrong, Jesse? Hearing the word no, Jesse exploded. I don't care what you have to do. You have to pull that ad back. Have you not been reading the business journals lately? Connor wanted to laugh, but was afraid it would ruin the act. His face was twitching from the effort of holding it in. Oh no, I haven't been. Jesse went silent, followed by a string of curses. He slammed the phone down. Connor casually tossed his own phone onto the table. Looks like he figured it out. Leo was unconcerned. The contract was signed. The money was paid. A primetime ad slot cost tens of thousands, including production fees. He'd already cleared over $10,000 in profit. He wondered how Jesse would react when he found out the ad agents made his ad was now owned by Leo. If he was this panicked now, what would he be like in a few days? He thought Jesse would give up, but a moment later, the phone rang again. Connor, my man. The shift in tone was quick. Jesse, you don't have to be so formal, Connor said, continuing his performance. I called him after we hung up. But you know how it is with the TV station. Everything is pre-screened and scheduled. Once it's on the docket, you can't change it on short notice. Jesse was silent. Through the phone, they could hear his heavy sigh. I get it, but please, see if you can think of anything else. I just found out today, this topic is blowing up in all the papers. Anyone who touches this is going to get burned. I can't believe Leo would stoop to this. After hanging up again, Jesse hurled his phone to the ground. The Nokia instantly broke into 3 pieces: phone, battery, back cover. He'd thrown it so hard it chipped a floor tile. There were a few other people in Jesse's office. Seeing his reaction, they knew the outcome without asking. I told you naming it Enjoy was a bad idea from the start, but you wouldn't listen, said Vivian Chen. Late to say anything now. You should be thinking control. She had never liked this nephew. Well, after divorcing Ethan, nephew anymore. If it wasn't for the Jang corporators, she never would have dealt with his side of the family. Jesse was already on edge. Her words sent him over. He pointed a finger at her. Who the hell do you think you are? If it wasn't for the Jang family, you'd be nothing. Now you think you have the right to talk. Don't get over yourself. The Jang Corporation was founded family patriarch. Before Ethan took over, it was successful, but far from market leader. Ethan had built it into the giant it was today. It was for the sake of the company's growth that he had married Vivian. Was there love between them? Ethan had never said the words. Neither had Vivian. Since she couldn't have love, she wanted something else. For example, the Jang Corporation. She knew she couldn't take a piece of it from Ethan on her own, so she teamed up with other family members, Jesse's father among them. Now, being yelled at by a junior, her composure finally cracked. The Jang family? She sneered. How impressive. She turned to leave. She'd given Jesse his chance. Whether he could seize, it was his problem. As for him insulting her, someone else would deal with him. Jesse regretted his words as soon as they left his mouth. But his pride wouldn't let him apologize. He could only watch as Vivian stormed out. He collapsed onto the sofa, his anger mounting. Finally, he roared through gritted teeth, Leo White. You just wait. After venting, he wanted to make another call, but found his phone in pieces on the floor. Looking around to make sure no one was watching, he bent down, reassembled it, and was relieved to see it power on. A new text message from Connor was waiting. Julian, call me when you see this. Thinking there was a breakthrough, Jesse immediately called back. Connor? Did the station agree to pull the ad? His joy lasted only 2 seconds before reality hit. No, but I did what you said. I looked into it. It's not a lost cause. What do you mean? Jesse was on the brink of despair. Connor seemed to be offering him a sliver of hope. Are you in your office? I'll come over and we can talk in person. I'm here. Unlike Jesse, Leo was in a great mood. The top floor of the Apex Tower housed the executive offices. As the current majority shareholder, Leo had one too, the one with the best view. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, he looked out at the ancient city and felt a wave of emotion. For now, the Apex Tower was still a high-rise with an excellent view. But in a few years, looking out from this same spot, he wouldn't be able to see a thing. The surrounding buildings would all be taller. But that was a problem for the future. It didn't stop him from wrapping his arms around Sophia's waist from behind. So, your goal is just to buy a few buildings in New York and L. And live off the rent. Sophia turned her head, surprised. Leo had just been telling her about his dream. Commercial empires and financial legends were all illusions. Once a company reached a certain size, going public was inevitable. It could cause an owner's net worth to skyrocket, but it also introduced too many uncontrollable factors. What Leo wanted was simple. He admitted he was a simple man. A happy life was enough. He was working hard to make money now, so that in the future, he wouldn't have to worry about his bank balance. And for the next few years, the best investment was real estate, especially in New York and L. With a few buildings generating rent, he'd be set not just for this life, but the next one too. Seeing Sophia's incredulous expression, Leo didn't react much. What's wrong with that? Collect rent on schedule and spend the rest of the time traveling with you. Doesn't that sound nice? Sophia snuggled into his embrace. The future he described was one she looked forward to. But she had her doubts. Can you really let it all go? Human desire is endless. When you have a few $100s, you think 10,000 is an infinite amount. But when you have 10,000, you want 1,000,000. She trusted Leo completely, but could he really just walk away? His prospects were brighter than ever. It would take immense courage to say something like that. Sophia didn't think he was just trying to fool her. He didn't need to. She was already hopelessly devoted. She shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. So pathetic. But then she remembered him standing in front of her, shielding her without a second thought. Sigh. Pathetic it is, then. Leo buried his face in the crook of her neck, inhaling her faint, clean scent. The one thing I can't let go of, I'll be holding tight. Everything else is negotiable. He unconsciously tightened his grip as he spoke. Sophia smiled, a radiant, happy smile. Leo's words were sweeter than honey. Happy moments are always fleeting. They spent the entire afternoon in the office, not even realizing it was evening until Sophia's phone rang. Okay, I got it. Sophia hung up quickly and looked at Leo. I have a dinner meeting with Hollywood to talk about the startup. Want to come? This was something Leo had asked her to repay a favor. He shook his head without thinking. You go ahead. A ladies' night out is no place for a man. Sophia covered her mouth and giggled. All right then. Can you give me a ride back? Leo was now a car owner, and a Land Rover owner at that. A free chauffeur was a resource Sophia felt shouldn't be wasted. Of course, Leo was happy to oblige. Leo dropped Sophia off at the university entrance and left. Successful men are masters of time management. He couldn't play favorites. Chloe was still at the hotel, although she had Gabby for company and could occasionally go out for coffee or shopping. Something was missing. That night, she sat alone on the sofa, bored, watching TV. Just as the show ended and she was about to change the channel, an ad for Enjoy Sportswear came on. The more she watched, the deeper her frown became. She didn't pay much attention to company operations, but she knew about Enjoy. It was Jesse's creation, designed to steal Rush's resources and market share. She just hadn't expected it to be so shameless. You can run your ad, but why did you have to smear Rush? Chloe was fuming. She was about to call Jesse and give him a piece of her mind when Leo walked in, carrying a large bag of snacks and fruit. Leo! Chloe cried out his name and, without even putting on her shoes, ran towards him on her delicate, bare feet. She'd been thinking about him all day, and now he was finally here. Before he could react, she leaped into his arms. The room was warm from the heating, and Chloe was wearing a thin nightgown. The jump was so big that the hem of her gown flew up. Pink, Leo muttered. Chloe froze for a second. Then her pretty face flushed red as she realized what had happened. But she didn't care, clinging to him tightly. Don't look, don't look. Leo gave her bottom a playful pat. The feel was nice. There's nothing to see. Even if you begged me, I wouldn't look. Feeling his touch, Chloe blushed even more. With a sudden burst of courage, she whispered shyly, You really don't want to look? All right. For a split second, Leo was tempted. He wasn't a pervert. He was just concerned about her aesthetic choices. Seeing his hesitant expression, Chloe burst out laughing. She hopped down from his arms and straightened her clothes. I wouldn't let you even if you wanted to, she said, pulling him by the hand to the sofa. She sat in a very provocative manner, seemingly on purpose. The hem of her gown was hiked high, revealing her pale, white thighs. Any higher, and there would be no point in wearing a skirt at all. Leo felt that Chloe had changed. She had become a little temptress. But Leo was not one to be outdone. If she was going to be like this, he wouldn't be polite. He placed his hand directly on her thigh. Chloe had only been teasing him. She never thought he'd be so bold. Her heart suddenly raced, and she quickly sat up straight, not daring to look at him. Go on. Leo said with a wicked grin. No, it's dangerous. Chloe pouted, not daring to continue the topic, afraid Leo's inner beast would be unleashed. If that happened, well, so be it. Leo, I just saw the Enjoy ad, she said, changing the subject. They've gone too far. Do you want me to yell at him for you? Only then did Leo notice the ad was still playing. He blinked at Chloe. Why would you yell at him? Because the person who planned this ad is shameless, twisting the facts, misleading people, Chloe said, clenching her fists in righteous indignation. Ahem. Leo coughed dryly. Now Chloe was unsettled. What's wrong? Are you not feeling well? No, I'm fine. A single stone stirs 1,000 waves. Thanks to Leo's maneuvering, the Enjoy ad became a hot topic online as soon as it aired. Everyone, whether they understood economics or not, had something to say about Enjoy's ugly tactics. Deliberately smearing a competitor to ride their coattails was shameless. Of course, the ad achieved its goal. Many people now knew the brand. Even if it was for all the wrong reasons, at least it had name recognition. Are you sure this is a good idea? Jesse did have competent people around him, but after he'd yelled at P11.She and she'd stormed out, she had pulled them all. The only ones left were his sycophants, good for flattery, but useless for building a brand, and people like Connor, who had their own agendas. Right now, Connor was playing the part of the brilliant strategist. You've seen it. Even though public opinion is against us, there are still people who agree with our ad and are defending us. Jesse was still hesitant. He'd already been burned once. If he followed Connor's advice and went all in, there was no telling what the final outcome would be. Seeing him lost in thought, Connor quickly added, Rush can't dominate the market forever. They have plenty of competitors, both obvious and hidden. They're just powerful right now, so no one wants to be the one to stick their neck out. But we don't have to be afraid. We're a new brand. We haven't even expanded our market yet. If things go south, we could just change the name. Today we could be Enjoy. Tomorrow we can be Enjoy. Who's going to know we're the same company? Connor's advice to Jesse was to capitalize on the heat from the ad. Now that the Enjoy name was out there, he should go all in. Keep attacking Rush. There would always be people who disliked Rush and would become die-hard fans of Enjoy. Blackening a name to the extreme was just another form of fame. Of course, Connor knew not to push too hard. He shut his mouth. The decision was up to Jesse. Saying more would seem suspicious. Leo's instruction was to teach Jesse a simple lesson. Any problem that can be solved with money isn't a problem. As for how to get that money, he didn't need to spell it out. Jesse would figure it out himself. After all, he was in charge of a major project. With a project and assets, getting a loan from a bank was easy, especially for someone from a prominent family like his. Whether he could pay it back was his problem. Jesse suddenly craved a cigarette, but he could only find an empty pack. Connor quickly offered his own, a freshly opened pack of Dunhills. It was a bit of a waste, but he figured Leo would probably reimburse him. Jesse blew a smoke ring. Keep running the ads. Get some online trolls to create more buzz. We'll ride this wave of publicity, rapidly expand our market, and become, what did you call it? A viral brand. Jesse had no idea where Connor came up with these strange terms. They were awkward to say, but easy to understand. Thinking about it, the plan seemed feasible. If they won the PR war, great. If they lost, they'd just have to change the name and start over. Connor, let me think about it. Connor could tell Jesse was tempted. Pressing him now would seem too deliberate. He stood up, said his goodbyes, and left. After Connor was gone, Jesse thought for a moment and then called home. He was far less confident than before. His father answered. After hearing Jesse's summary, he paused to consider. Manufacturing a conflict with an established brand to quickly raise your own profile is inherently risky. But his method, I think it could work. We're already at a disadvantage. If we back down now, when the buzz is at its peak, it will just make us look guilty. Your brand will become a joke. On the other hand, if you push forward, the people who were just following the crowd will start to wonder where we're getting our confidence. They'll start to look into whether what we're saying is true. And with the help of those so-called online trolls, you might get some unexpected results. With his father's support, Jesse felt a surge of confidence. Just as he was about to hang up, his father added a warning. This Leo White kid built such a large enterprise in such a short time. It's not all luck. He has vision and guts beyond his years. It's best not to push him too far. And remember, Vivian and Richard Chien's last name is Chien. Don't stand on the wrong side. When Ethan was in charge of the Jang Corporation, he was an absolute monarch. All the schemers and parasites had to stay in the shadows. That was why Vivian and the others had teamed up against him. Ethan had made it clear more than once that the future of the company belonged to Chloe. If he had shown even a little consideration for the other members of the Jang family, he wouldn't have been so isolated. Now, with Ethan stuck in a mess and unable to return anytime soon, All sorts of characters were crawling out of the woodwork. When facing Ethan, they might have been united. But now, they were each other's rivals. The once mighty Jang Corporation had become a chaotic mess in such a short time. Leo didn't know what Ethan was thinking, and he didn't care. In his mind, he would never let himself be taken advantage of. He agreed. Spike's office at the Net Cafe was unusually lively today. Connor had just arrived and told Leo that Jesse had agreed to continue the ad campaign and expand his store network. He agreed, but boss, there's something I don't get. The advice you gave him. It doesn't seem like a bad idea. He might actually be able to make it work. Leo was calm. He tossed an orange to Connor and explained, if it was a bad idea, he wouldn't have fallen for it. What I want is the reversal. We lost a lot of partners and market share recently. The old ads have lost their impact. Without a huge event to get rushed back in the public eye, it'll be hard to reclaim the market. You have to stay relevant to keep growing. I was trying to think of a way to do that, and this just fell into my lap. Connor was still confused. But he's smearing you. Spike threw an arm around Connor's shoulders and pulled him down onto the sofa. Look at you, all worked up. The boss means that the more he smears us now, the louder the slap will be when the truth comes out. After all, it's the boss who's smearing himself right now. It's all under his control. Leo smiled. That's one part of it. The other is that I want him to build up Enjoy's market share. After he said this, the entire office fell silent. No one understood what he meant. Richard Chien, Leo, continued, used a certain tactic when he tried to acquire my uncle's garment factory. It was quite effective. I think we can learn from it. Leo's plan was a carbon copy of the one Richard Chien had used on his Uncle Carl. First, flood the factory with massive orders, forcing them to scale up production. Once the factory was over-leveraged and the inventory was stacked to the ceiling, the orders would simply vanish, crashing the supply chain. If Leo had been a day later, Richard would have already sent his people to force a buyout. With bank loans coming due and payroll to meet, his uncle would have had no choice but to sell. Leo's strategy for Jesse Jiang was the same, just in reverse. First, make Jesse think he was sitting on a gold mine. Get him to aggressively expand his market. But that wasn't enough. The real key was to get him to spend the money he hadn't earned yet, creating a debt crisis. Then, Leo would send his own people to acquire Enjoy Sportswear. The market share Jesse had fought for would become Leo's, practically for free. He wondered what kind of faces those employees who jumped ship from Rush would make when they found out. After Leo laid out the plan, Connor's son just stared at him. Leo, man, do you have a personal vendetta against this guy? This is brutal. Leo wasn't about to rehash the past. He just gave a dismissive wave. Let's just say I'm helping Julian teach his cousin a lesson. If it weren't for his respect for Julian, this would be a lot less complicated. With that sorted, Leo headed back to campus. Chloe was still a hot topic. Even though she hadn't been to class in a while, a few tabloid vultures were still camped out by the entrance, hoping to snag some exclusive shot. Someone had leaked that he and Chloe were close, so now Leo had to go full incognito just to get back to his dorm. Thankfully, it was winter. Bundling up in a hat and scarf didn't look out of place. Who are you? What are you doing in our room? Leo had just stepped into room 718 and hadn't even taken off his hat when Mark Liang's challenge rang out. At the sound of his voice, Chad and Shane both looked over. Leo. Chad was the first to recognize him. Leo nodded, pulling off his hat and carefully folding his scarf. It was a gift from Sophia. She hadn't said so, but looking at the tight, even stitches, he knew she knitted it herself. He had 2 or 3 similar ones from her. Whoa, it really is you. What brings you back? Dude, a ton of people have been looking for you. The news about Ethan Zhang's trouble had spread like wildfire across campus. If it had been anyone else, it might have been a minor story, but this was Ethan Zhang, and his daughter, Chloe, was a student here. It's not like I committed a crime. Why wouldn't I come back? Leo shot back. He had a point, but Shane still swallowed hard. Well, it's just... He hesitated. Leo, is Chloe okay? Leo glanced at him, and Shane immediately threw up his hands. Don't get me wrong, man. I'm just asking. I mean, after something like this. Leo knew they meant well. He sighed. She's holding up. Lost a little weight. Chad pulled a chair over for him. With Mr. Jang out of the picture for now, are we still doing the Innovate U competition? The competition's first round was in early December. Their delivery service, iGo, sponsored by the 718 room number, had successfully made it to the semifinals. The next round involved pitching to angel investors. The original plan had been simple. Pitch it directly to Ethan Jiang. But now that was a problem. With him gone, Shane and the others were adrift. They hadn't wanted to bother Leo, knowing how busy he was, but otherwise, they would have dragged him back to campus sooner. When it came down to it, Leo was their anchor. Of course, we're still doing it, Leo said without a second thought. My Uncle Ethan might not be available, but everything that needed to be arranged is already in place. The three of them breathed a collective sigh of relief. They'd poured their hearts into Igo. With that issue settled, Mark brought up another. Winter break is coming up. Richie was asking if we should organize a class get-together. The other dorms seemed to be on board. Leo had almost forgotten he even had a social circle beyond his roommates. An entire semester had passed, and, aside from the guys in 718 and a few of the more memorable female faces, he could barely name anyone else in his class. A party sounded like a good idea. Did he say when? Not sure. Probably this weekend, Shane answered. Count me in, then. A thought occurred to him. Hey, is Hollywood going? Chad didn't react much to the question, just gave him a long look. But Shane and Mark weren't so calm. Leo, why are you asking? You don't have your eye on her now, do you? You know, she's turned down a lot of guys since the semester started. You too. Before Shane could finish, Leo smacked him on the back of the head. What is wrong with your brain? He grumbled. I just need to talk to her about something. Even with the explanation, Shane looked unconvinced, thinking it was a poor excuse. He rubbed his head and shut up, not wanting another smack. Adding for a bit longer, Leo washed up and climbed into bed. He was used to a king-size bed now, and the narrow dorm mattress felt foreign. But Leo wasn't picky. He was asleep in minutes. In the middle of the night, the dorm was a symphony of grinding teeth and mumbled dream talk. After waking up once to use the bathroom, Leo couldn't fall back asleep. He checked the time. Just past 4:00 a.m. The campus streetlights were all off, leaving only the faint, distant glow from a few scattered windows in the residential towers. Since sleep was out of the question, Leo didn't fight it. He pulled on a jacket and slipped out of the dorm. The night attendant was asleep at his desk. Leo opened the door carefully and slid out without a sound. The late-night campus was deserted. It was just cold, utterly, bitingly cold. Leo walked aimlessly, letting his feet carry him. Somehow, he ended up at the main gate of the University of Oregon. Unlike his own quiet campus, there were already students here, heading towards the library even at this hour. To his surprise, he saw a familiar face. What are you doing here? Hollywood jumped at the sound of his voice. Leo, God, you really scared me, she said, clutching her chest. Leo frowned slightly. As far as he knew, the only person Holly knew at this school was Sophia. Where is she? He asked directly. Holly stammered, avoiding his gaze. His frown deepened. Don't tell me you two have been working this whole time. Holly's eyes darted away, unable to meet his. Finally, she mumbled a weak apology. I'm so sorry. Sophia was just trying to help me with my startup idea. After Holly left, Leo strolled over to the women's dormitory. Pretending he knew nothing, he called Sophia. What's wrong? It's so early. Her voice was thick with exhaustion. If he didn't know better, he would have thought his call had woken her up. He didn't waste time. I miss you. The other end of the line was silent for a moment before she replied. Me too. Leo sighed softly. In that case, why don't you come down and see me? Despite her fatigue, she agreed immediately. Where are you? Downstairs. Sophia froze for 2 seconds before scrambling out of bed. She ran to the balcony and looked down. Sure enough, there was Leo standing under a streetlight, waving up at her. It was freezing outside. He was bundled up tight, the scarf around his neck seeming to block most of the biting wind. Sophia moved quietly, not wanting to wake her roommates. She got dressed and, perhaps worried he'd see how tired she was, quickly applied a touch of makeup. It was a rush job, but it worked, mostly concealing the dark circles under her eyes. There was nothing she could do about the redness. She'd just have to tell him she hadn't slept well. When she got downstairs, she saw him standing there with his arms open. Without a second thought, she ran right into his embrace. What are you doing here so early? Leo didn't speak. He just gently wiped a smudge of foundation from the corner of her eye. It was an intimate gesture. In the past, Sophia would have smiled up at him, but today she kept looking away. He didn't call her out on it. Ultimately, this was his fault. If he hadn't asked for her help, none of this would have happened. I couldn't sleep alone. I was looking for someone to share a bed with, he said. Is that okay? Seeing that he wasn't joking, Sophia couldn't quite figure out what he was thinking. She didn't say anything, but the way she squeezed his hand was answer enough. He let her off campus. It was past 5:00 a.m., and the breakfast places around the university were already bustling. Are you hungry? Leo had been quiet the whole walk, only speaking after hearing her stomach rumble twice. Sophia wanted to stubbornly say no, but before she could, Leo was already pulling her into a small shop that sold breakfast burritos. 1 chorizo burrito, 1 steak, 2 coffees, he ordered, and an extra egg. The owner was fast. When the food came, Leo was the one who peeled the hard-boiled egg for her. That was usually her job. She had always loved him in her own quiet way, with small gestures that were full of genuine, deep affection. It was a simple love, but one that carried a profound sense of reliance. "You don't have to rush with Holly's project," Leo said, placing the peeled egg in her bowl. Sophia was smart. She knew that he'd figured it out. She could only manage Just focus on your classes for now, he continued. Finals are coming up. You can't be failing anything. Failing a class meant nothing to Leo, but for Sophia, it was a different story. I know, she said, wiping her mouth. We're done eating. Where to next? To sleep, Leo said, standing up. His Land Rover was still parked back at his campus, so he couldn't drive. The only option was to take Sophia to the gaming lounge. At this hour, the place had finally quieted down. The first half of the night was a frenzy of activity. The second half was a silent vigil. The all-night gamers were probably so burnt out they'd need 6 tables for 5 people at breakfast, all muttering about how they'd never pull an all-nighter with their friends again. But once they woke up that evening, they'd be right back at it. Maybe that was what being young was all about, unrestrained, with a group of friends crazy enough to join you. Leo, the girl at the front desk, was half asleep. She hadn't planned on acknowledging the new customers, but when she saw it was Leo, she shot straight up. Hey, you here to play, or? Leo shook his head. Didn't sleep well. Came to catch up. Can you get us some water? Sure thing. The girl quickly returned with 2 disposable cups of water. Leo handed one to Sophia. People who pulled all-nighters needed to stay hydrated. After watching her finish it, he led her to his private room. He hadn't been here in a while, but the room was cleaned daily and the sheets were washed regularly. Even though Leo had told them not to bother, Spike's sister and her crew had kept it up. Gratitude was a rare quality, but they remembered everything Leo had done for them. Sophia went into the bathroom to wash up. Leo wasn't as particular. He flopped onto the bed and set the thermostat to a comfortable temperature. When Sophia came out, she was wearing a simple, thin nightgown, looking as fresh and delicate as a water lily. Seeing Leo leaning against the headboard, playing on his phone without even looking at her, a small flicker of annoyance sparked within her. She walked briskly to the bed, jumped on it, and stared at him intently. Leo reached out and pinched her cheek. Go to sleep. Oh. Sophia burrowed under the covers, leaving only her eyes peeking out, showing no intention of closing them. It wasn't until Leo slid an arm under her neck to use as a pillow that she smiled sweetly. Breathing in Sophia's scent, a deep sense of peace settled over Leo. He didn't have to do anything. Just holding her like this felt good enough. Sophia was truly exhausted. Before long, he could hear her even breathing. A faint smile lingered on her lips, making her look ethereal. Leo gently reached over and turned off the light, then pressed his lips to her forehead before falling asleep himself. Leo loved to sleep, but he hadn't gotten a decent night's rest in a long time. He always woke up too early and couldn't fall back asleep. But today, when he opened his eyes, the sky outside was bright. He glanced at his phone. It was almost noon. Sophia was still sleeping soundly, curled up in his arms like a kitten. As he looked down at her, she must have sensed his movement, because she snuggled deeper into his embrace. He wasn't about to wake her. He had silenced his phone last night, and now the screen was filled with missed calls. There were calls from his company, from Chloe, and from his dad. They had all called once and then stopped, knowing that if Leo didn't pick up, something was up and they shouldn't bother him. His Uncle Carl had called twice and sent a text. That classmate of yours, her family's problem isn't easy to solve. The factory is refusing to take any responsibility, and they don't have any proof it was the factory's fault. Leo suddenly remembered. He'd asked his uncle to look into the situation with Wendy's family, not just to help her, but to see if there was anything wrong with the factory itself. Richard Chien, the man's mind was a labyrinth of schemes, and he was utterly ruthless. Even Ethan Jang had trouble dealing with him. Leo's fingers tapped out a reply. Thanks for the trouble, Uncle. Just help them out as much as you can. That was the most he could do for now. Everything else would have to wait until he was back in Riverbend. Sophia was awake. She didn't make a sound, just lay there with her eyes open, watching him. From her angle, Leo didn't look as dashing as he usually did. But that was fine. Sophia liked Leo, and it had nothing to do with his looks. The old saying, attracted by looks, loyal for talent, trapped by character, it was all nonsense to her. She just liked him. Even if he were just a regular guy, she'd still like him. Seeing that he wasn't looking at her, Sophia thought he didn't know she was awake. She was about to play a little prank when, with the slightest movement, he reached out and pinched her cheek. Eat, sleep, and wake up just in time to eat again, he teased. You've got it all planned out, don't you? Sophia giggled, taking his hand and pressing it against her own warm cheek. A life like this is pretty comfortable. I wish every day could be like this. Waking up to find both you and the sunshine here. I don't know about the sunshine, but I'll always be here, Leo said, then rolled out of bed and pulled open the curtains. The winter sun felt warm and exceptionally pleasant. Sophia stretched luxuriously. That had been a wonderful sleep. She sat up in bed and called out to him, closed the curtains. Even though the window faced a desolate patch of land and no one could see in, she still didn't like it. On this point, Leo was obedient. Once the light was dim again, Sophia, completely unbothered by Leo's presence, slipped out of her nightgown and started changing into her clothes. That was the one bad thing about winter. So many layers. She was halfway dressed when Leo walked over and gave her a sharp smack on the butt. He put some force into it. Though it stung, Sophia bit her lip and held back a cry, turning to look at him with a pitiful expression. She looked so utterly heart-wrenching, but Leo's heart didn't soften. No more all-nighters. No more exhausting yourself like this. Sophia had only put on her thermal undershirt. It was tight, perfectly outlining the graceful curves of her body. She wrapped her arms around his neck and whispered, "Hold me." It was a request no man could refuse. As he held her, she rested her head on his shoulder. Leo didn't sense anything amiss. They did this often. But her next move left him completely stunned. "Are you a dog?" he yelped. She had bitten down hard on his shoulder. Having gotten her revenge, Sophia played innocent. "You hit me. That's because you weren't listening to me," he retorted, annoyed. She didn't care. She turned around and continued getting dressed. Once she was ready, she spun around in front of him. "Do you like it?" Leo was about to say yes, but Sophia, with an adorable wink, beat him to it. "Well, I like it, so you have to like it too. Because it's yours, and it can only be yours." A playful smile touched Leo's lips. He asked knowingly, "What's mine?" Normally, Sophia would have blushed and said, "I'm yours. I'll always be yours." But this was Sophia, the endlessly clever and mischievous Sophia. She leaned close to his ear and whispered in a soft, sweet voice, "You're." She paused dramatically. "Queen." She quickly pulled back and, seeing his stunned expression, covered her mouth and let out a series of triumphant giggles. He. Right at the peak of her laughter, but suffered another attack. Leo was not having it. "Queen, I'm giving you one chance to rephrase that." Sophia stuck her chin out, pouting defiantly. "Nope, I won't." She shook her head. "You can beat me to death, and I still won't." As if he could ever bring himself to actually hurt her. He reached out and ruffled her hair. "Come on, let's go get something to eat." Sophia stood with her hands on her hips, pretending not to hear him. "What did you say?" "My dear Miss Sue, let's go get some food. So you can eat and go back to sleep." She was still not satisfied. "That's not the right way to address me." Leo felt a wave of helplessness, but deep down, he loved it. Sophia always knew how to cheer him up. He didn't let it show, though, keeping his face stern. "Then how should I address you?" She blinked at him. "You know what I want." Seeing her determined expression, Leo knew she wouldn't give up. He didn't want to give in, but it seemed he had no choice. "Would you do me the honor of having a meal with me, my queen?" Though his tone wasn't entirely convinced, it was enough for Sophia. She loved it. She jumped onto his back. "Of course, my dear brother." "Brother." "Fine." Hearing that word, so sweet it melted his heart, Leo decided to let it go. By noon, the gaming lounge was crowded again, filled with the clatter of keyboards. If this were Chloe, she wouldn't care about other people's stares. Once she was on Leo's back, she wouldn't come down easily. But Sophia was different. When there were a lot of people around, she seemed a bit more reserved. "You don't want me to carry you anymore," Leo teased. Sophia didn't even look at him, just muttered under her breath, "I'm afraid they'll beat you to death." Right? Sophia wasn't embarrassed by the stares. In that regard, she was just as confident as Chloe. The reason she didn't do anything too outrageous in public was to protect Leo. The gaming lounge was a melting pot of students from all the nearby schools, including his own. And Leo, thanks to Chloe, was a campus celebrity. She wouldn't cause him any more trouble. She kept that thought to herself. They had lunch at a Chinese place next to the lounge. The food was decent, but it had a regional flavor profile that wasn't quite to Sophia's taste. She wasn't a picky eater, though, so she ate it anyway. After lunch, according to Leo's plan, it was time to go back to sleep. Wake up, eat, sleep again, that was the good life. But Sophia refused without a second thought. No, she didn't even bother to explain. She just told him, "I have class this afternoon, and after that, I have to meet with Holly to plan our market research. That was, after all, something he had assigned her. Leo had things to do that afternoon too, so he couldn't laze around with Sophia. Seeing her insistence, he didn't try to persuade her further. He just gave her a final instruction. I'll come find you tonight, and no more all-nighters. Sophia turned and walked back toward campus. I know. After a period of quiet, things unfolded just as Connor had predicted. The name Enjoy Sportswear got bigger and bigger. It was mostly infamous, but any publicity is good publicity. The brand's notoriety attracted a few die-hard fans amidst the sea of haters. In the Pacific Northwest, their sales figures had actually started to look impressive. This whole affair made Jang value Connor even more. He not only gave Connor full control over distribution in the region, but also made him the acting director of the company's marketing department, with a generous salary to match. Leo, when are you going to reel this fish in? Connor complained. Any longer, and I'm going to end up as their damn CEO. They were at a high-end spa, getting foot massages in a private room. Despite the luxury, Connor was full of grievances. You have no idea how annoying that Jesse guy is. Jesse had no competent people under him. Now that he'd found one, he was working him to the bone. Someone else might have seen it as a sign of being valued by the boss, but this was Connor. His ambitions couldn't be satisfied by a mere manager's title. Besides, he knew perfectly well that Leo would never let Enjoy Sportswear thrive under Jesse's control. Just give me a timeline, Connor pleaded. Something to look forward to. Leo was lying back with his eyes closed, enjoying the massage. It was incredibly relaxing, but he couldn't come to places like this too often, lest people get the wrong idea. Hearing Connor's whining, he chuckled. So, what do you really think of Enjoy Sportswear? Connor didn't know why Leo was asking, but he answered honestly. Their resources and channels are extensive. I've inspected their production facilities. In terms of quality and design, there's really nothing to criticize. That's why they've managed to achieve decent sales numbers so quickly, even with all the negative press. If they keep going like this, they could genuinely challenge Rush's market position, especially now that Rush is facing its own market crisis. Leo opened his eyes and sat up. He didn't argue. Connor was right. Without any outside interference, Enjoy would only get bigger. And that's exactly what Leo wanted to see. Previously, Rush Sportswear had dominated the domestic market, a monopoly that bred resentment. Scandals and rumors were constant. Even after Leo established a PR crisis team and a legal department, the situation was never fully under control. In this era, online regulation was lax. Misinformation spread like a virus, and keyboard warriors acted with impunity. Leo had considered launching a rival brand himself, creating a Nike and Adidas dynamic. Competition breeds conversation. He could manage both from behind the scenes, with the two companies appearing completely unrelated. But the Rush model was difficult to replicate without a massive, no-holds-barred marketing blitz backed by corporations' resources, exactly like what Jesse was doing. Leo didn't have that kind of spare cash, so he'd shelved the idea. Until now, a competitor had appeared. This was a good thing. Connor, Leo said, holding out a cigarette. Connor took it and was about to light it when Leo stopped him, saying sternly, "No smoking in enclosed spaces." Connor was bewildered. "You just gave it to me." But Leo was unfazed. "Giving it to you is a courtesy. Not letting you smoke it is my principle." He tucked his own cigarette behind his ear. "Jesse has another city project on his hands," Leo said. "It's his ticket into the Jang Corporation's inner circle, so he can't afford to mess it up. I've checked. The government funding has already been transferred to their company account." That period was also when Jesse's personal spending was at its highest. As Leo spoke, Connor fell into deep thought, stroking his chin with a sly look on his face. After a moment, he snapped his fingers. "Leo, I know what to do." Leo was a little surprised. "What?" he asked, curious. Connor grinned, a smile so unsettling it made Leo's skin crawl. "Never mind," he thought. "I don't want to know. It'll probably insult my ears." After their meeting, Leo returned to campus. The class get-together was tonight. Even though he couldn't recognize half the people, as a member of the class, he had to show up. In 2004, college students didn't have a lot of disposable income. A class dinner had to accommodate everyone's budget. Richie had done a good job choosing a reasonably priced Chinese restaurant near campus. Even after a full semester, the students still stuck to their dorm cliques at the table. Richie and Holly tried to get the guys and girls to mix, but when they actually sat together, most of them couldn't squeeze out a single word. Since they were more familiar, Holly's dorm ended up sitting with the guys from 718, and she sat right next to Leo. Leo, she began tentatively. "I heard from Sophia that you're planning to invest in our idea, and that you'd give us the prime corner spot in a new market at Mill District." When Sophia had first mentioned starting a business, Holly had thought the idea was a world away and rejected it outright. But then Sophia had broken down the pros and cons, and Holly had started to waver. After doing some market research with Sophia on the beauty industry, she was completely sold. Manicures and makeup. There really seemed to be money in it. The key was that Sophia had promised to back her financially. If Holly didn't know for a fact that Leo wasn't interested in her, she would have thought Sophia was acting as his messenger. After all, Sophia had told her more than once that she would support any decision Leo made, no matter how absurd it seemed. Seeing Holly looking at him so timidly, Leo turned his head and continued eating. "Business is about profit," he said between bites. "I see potential in this market." In reality, while manicures would be profitable in the future, it was nothing that would catch Leo's eye. What he was really interested in was the cosmetics, especially the high-end international brands. A tiny jar of primer or moisturizer could cost hundreds. Creams and cleansers were even more expensive. The business model was simple: get the distribution rights. It was perfect for someone like Holly, who had connections but lacked real-world experience. Though Leo's answer was casual, Holly was thrilled. "Thank you, Leo. I'll work really hard." Shane and the others had no idea what was going on. They were completely lost. But the girls from Holly's dorm were all smiling eagerly at Leo. "Hey, Leo, what about us? We're all classmates. You can't play favorites, right?" "Yeah, totally." One girl calling him Leo was one thing. 3 or 4 girls calling him that at once suddenly transported him back to a nightclub. A very pleasant, intoxicating feeling. Fortunately, Leo was immune. He remained unmoved, offering only polite platitudes. "If you have any good ideas, do the market research, write up a business plan, and we can talk." Business is business. As an investor, who could refuse a guaranteed profitable project? They fell silent. He was right, of course. But good projects were hard to find. They say that when the wind is blowing, even a pig can fly. But not everyone can spot which way the wind is blowing. Every industry follows the 80-20 rule. 20% of the people make 80% of the money. Everyone wants to be in that 20%, but it's an exclusive club. Realizing they wouldn't get anywhere with Leo, they turned to Holly. "Holly, you have to include us." Leo just kept eating. How Holly responded was her business. Sometimes learning to say no was part of growing up. Leo wanted to help the guys from 718 get rich, but he never intended for them to join his company. It wasn't that he doubted their abilities. He was just worried that once money and a corporate hierarchy were involved, their friendship wouldn't be so pure anymore. Tonight's gathering included a rare appearance of alcohol. Though they were still students, most of them had developed a sense of the social world. They knew that the most formidable person in their class was the rarely seen Leo. One by one, they came over to toast him, their cups held just a little lower than his in a gesture of respect they'd picked up somewhere. A single semester, and everyone had already changed. Running into some trouble lately? Richie Ho sat down next to him, bringing his own plate and chopsticks. "How's Chloe holding up?" Leo was a little buzzed. He shot Richie an annoyed look. "Who are you worried about?" Richie looked dead serious. "Is it not obvious?" "It's definitely not you." Perhaps it was the alcohol, but the usually refined Richie was being surprisingly blunt. "You might not believe this, but the first time I saw Chloe, I was genuinely stunned. I definitely had the thought that you didn't deserve her." Leo wasn't surprised at all. He'd sensed it back then, when Chloe had taken him to register for classes and Richie had been the one to help them. Leo had even joked with Chloe about it. Seeing Leo staring at him, Richie quickly explained, "Ultimately, I was being superficial. Maybe you're not the best, but you're the most suitable for her. Treat her well, even if she's not the same rich girl she used to be." Leo didn't know where Richie found the courage to say all this to his face, but he still replied with his usual flippancy. "You're right. She's not the girl she used to be. She's mine." Richie rolled his eyes and said nothing more. After he left, Holly leaned in, her face full of gossip. "Leo, if Chloe and Sophia both fell into the water, who would you save?" Leo blinked, seemingly unable to come up with an answer. "Why don't you ask Sophia?" Holly shook her head emphatically. "That's no fun. She'd just say she knows how to swim." Leo thought for a moment. That sounded exactly like something Sophia would say. He tried a different line. "How about you ask Chloe?" "We're not close." Holly refused without a second thought. Her presence is too overwhelming. It's not comfortable being around her. As Leo and Holly were chatting idly, they suddenly heard Mark call out to Shane. "Shane, look, your goddess is here." "Which one?" "I have a lot of goddesses." "Hey, there's one sitting right next to Leo." Shane had also had a fair bit to drink, his voice thick and muffled. It was a joke, but it still made Holly chuckle. Mark quickly clarified, "No, I mean your real goddess." Now, Leo was curious. He turned his head and followed Mark's gaze to a tall, slender girl in a wool coat. She looked familiar. What was her name? You. She saw their table and walked straight over. Shane was completely dumbstruck, nearly drooling. It really was his goddess. Unfortunately, it was a classic case of unrequited love. They were on completely different planets. Leo. Watching her bypass him and greet Leo directly, Shane felt like he couldn't breathe. It was the sound of a heart breaking. The last time Leo remembered seeing Yvonne Yuan was at the Welcome Week concert. What a coincidence, Yvonne. Yvonne smiled. It really is. By the way, is Chloe not with you? I haven't seen her in a while. Is she doing okay? Thanks for asking. She's doing fine, just not convenient for her to be on campus right now, Leo said casually. Given his relationship with Yvonne, he didn't think they were close enough for her to come over just to say hi. Is there something else, Yvonne? When she approached, many eyes had followed her. The beautiful upperclassman was just as famous on campus as Chloe. The only difference was Chloe's Land Rover, which was a major bonus point. Yvonne was used to being the center of attention. She said softly, I heard your market has taken a hit recently. My family also works in distribution back in Louisiana, and my brother asked me to see if you were interested in a partnership. Seeing Leo was about to speak, she quickly added, not your current tiered access model, but a full regional distributorship. Rush's problems were, in Leo's mind, not problems at all. He couldn't understand why so many people were choosing this moment to kick him while he was down. A full regional distributorship was a huge deal, just like the power and joy had given Connor. If Connor had a mind to, he could sink the brand completely, just like that infamous tainted food scandal with a major instant noodle brand. Was a brand at fault? Yes, but only in one region. The damage, however, affected the entire company. Please thank your brother for his kind offer, but we're not interested, Leo said, his rejection blunt. Yvonne wasn't offended in the least. Of course. That's what my brother said you'd say. Well, I'll be going then. Please say hi to Chloe for me. She wasn't the type to pester. She turned to leave, but after a few steps, she turned back. Oh, and my brother also said that if you're ever looking for a business partner in the future, you should consider him. She paused, a small smile playing on her lips. He's a fool with more money than sense. She laughed to herself. What was the other thing he'd said? His sister's pretty good looking? She couldn't quite remember. Not long after Yvonne left, Leo's phone rang. It was Chloe. Yvonne just called me. She wants us to have dinner together. When do you think is a good time? Also, I'm hungry. I need food. I know you need to eat, so go eat, Leo grumbled into the phone. But Chloe clearly had no intention of letting him off the hook. I want you to come here and eat with me. You count how many days it's been since you last saw me. Leo was confused. He asked uncertainly, has it really been days? I can tell you with absolute certainty, yes. Chloe declared, starting to count on her fingers. It's been 1 day, 7 hours, and 32 minutes. If we round up, that's basically 2 days. And a day without seeing you is like 3 years. So you tell me, has it been a long time? Leo had no desire to argue with someone whose math teacher was clearly an English major. It would be an endless debate. Looking at the nearly full table of food and not wanting to be wasteful, he said, I'm eating right now. There's a ton of leftovers. You want me to pack some up for you? Knowing Chloe, he expected her to immediately refuse the offer of leftovers. That would give him a perfect excuse not to go. But to his surprise, she hesitated for only 2 seconds before agreeing. Okay, just bring me a couple of dinner rolls. I'm easy to please. Her voice was soft and gentle, with a hint of manufactured grievance. Anyone else would have felt their heart ache and immediately promised to take her out for a fancy meal. But this was Leo. Her tricks didn't work on him. You got it, he replied without missing a beat. Then, before hanging up, he shouted loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear, Hey, anybody got any leftovers? I need to pack some up. Chloe was stunned. He was actually serious? She was about to tell him never mind when she heard the dial tone from the other end. Asshole, she seethed, throwing her phone onto the bed. She pouted, fuming for about 30 seconds before picking her phone back up. She opened her photo album and started jabbing at a picture of him, muttering insults like big jerk and worse. Leo had hung up quickly because his stunt had actually worked. Someone was flagging down a waiter for a to-go container. Maybe you should just order a couple of fresh dishes to bring her, Holly suggested, unable to watch the train wreck. Leo just shrugged. It's a 40-minute drive from here. The food would be cold by the time I got there. Forget it. Besides, I drank tonight. I can't drive. The university district was remote. You might see a couple of taxis during the day, but at night, they were a rare sight. As Leo was trying to figure out how to get to Chloe, the roar of engines echoed from outside the restaurant. Everyone turned to look. A line of 5 two-seater sports cars, their brands obscured by the darkness, pulled up and parked neatly at the curb. Flashy cars are always a hot topic. Add a few beautiful women to the mix, and it becomes an explosion. Leo, those cars must be crazy expensive, right? Mark asked, practically drooling as he watched several wealthy-looking young men get out, each with a stunning woman on his arm. The lighting was too dim, and Leo knew next to nothing about cars, so he couldn't guess their value. But when he saw Connor's son get out, wearing sunglasses at night with a thick gold chain around his neck, he knew they had to be expensive. Any car that could reduce a perfectly normal young man to this level of idiocy had to be worth a fortune. Leo wasn't surprised that Connor had found him. He'd asked where Leo would be before dinner. Unlike the others, who all had dates, Connor was alone. Right? The man was about to be a father. He had to keep his distance. The guys from 718 all recognized Connor. He was their business partner, after all. But tonight, Connor's getup was so bizarre they didn't place him at first. Like the rest of the students in the restaurant, they just stared as the flashy crew swaggered in. The once noisy restaurant seemed to fall silent. Some people are naturally cool. Others have to fake it, like Connor. His swagger lasted all of 3 seconds. The moment he saw Leo, he whipped off his sunglasses, and the sycophantic grin returned. Leo, what do you think? Cool, right? Cool wasn't the word Leo would have used. Stupid felt more appropriate. But he couldn't say that in front of everyone, so he just gave a non-committal nod. So you came all this way just to show off for me. Connor shook his head, seeing the crowd. He kept his voice low and gestured to the guys with him. Say hi to Leo. Hey, Leo, they chorused. The restaurant, already quieted by their arrival, fell completely silent. Leo's classmates stared at him in shock. With shows like The Godfather still popular, Leo's entourage looked seriously intimidating. A muscle twitched in Leo's cheek. He stood up, slung an arm around Connor's shoulder, and started walking him outside. What the hell are you doing? He demanded once they were out the door. He glanced back inside. Sure enough, most of his classmates were staring at them, their heads bent together, clearly gossiping. Connor just grinned. This is how we deal with Jesse Jang. Leo walked over to one of the cars and looked at the emblem. A prancing horse, right? Definitely expensive. You bought this? Leo asked, not believing it himself. Connor's family was wealthy, but not by your son $1 million sports car wealthy. And, judging by the way the other guys deferred to Connor, it was a safe bet he'd provided their cars too. Connor chuckled and whispered, rented. But Jesse doesn't know that. He continued, I told Jesse I was introducing him to some second-generation rich kids from the area. When they all show up in supercars with models on their arms, and he pulls up in his Volkswagen, how do you think he's going to feel? Connor raised an eyebrow. Then we'll drop a few backhanded compliments. Something about how a man of his stature should be driving something. Better. Leo used to think Connor was just mischievous. Now he knew the guy was genuinely devious. Jesse was only 20, an age defined by pride and a competitive streak. He'd always been under his family's thumb, never experiencing true financial freedom. But now things were different. Not only did he have control over Enjoy Sportswear and its funds, but the City Project account held a sum of money he could have only dreamed of before. A thin thread of reason was the only thing holding him back from reckless spending. But if someone was there to egg him on, that thread could easily snap. And Connor knew how to be persuasive. Leo, tomorrow, when I report the financial data to him, I'm going to inflate next month's projected earnings. Then, at night, I'll take him to a party. We'll get some drinks in him, praise him, look down on him, provoke him a little. I bet he'll spend money on a car. Enjoy's cash is mostly tied up in market expansion. If he wants to buy something, he'll have to. Connor trailed off. Leo understood. First, make Jesse think he was about to make a huge profit. Then, use reverse psychology to trick him into spending that money prematurely. When next month's actual revenue fell short, Connor would suggest a bridge loan to cover the deficit. When he couldn't pay back the loan, he'd dip into the other project's funds, robbing Peter to pay Paul, an endless cycle. If they wanted to be truly ruthless, they could even suggest he try his luck with a loan shark. A 20-year-old with little life experience and poor self-control was easy to destroy. Leo didn't comment on Connor's methods. After all, the guy was working for him. I'm going to go get a steamed sea base to go. You can give me a ride to the hotel, Leo said, changing the subject. Connor grinned. He'd come here tonight to get Leo's opinion, and it seemed he had his approval. He readily agreed. No problem at all. Let me show you what it feels like when the engine roars, that incredible G-force pushing you back in your seat. He shouldn't have said that. Now Leo was having second thoughts. You know what? Maybe not. I'll just grab a cab. But Connor wasn't listening. He pushed Leo into the passenger seat and called out to one of the other guys, go get a steamed sea base to go. Connor held a lot of sway with this group. The guy took off immediately, even abandoning the beautiful girl Connor had arranged for him. The girl, who was quite attractive herself, sashayed over to Connor. Connor, is this Leo? He's so handsome. Hearing this, Connor's playful expression instantly vanished. His face hardened. Some people you don't mess with. Understand, the woman had never seen this side of Connor. Her face went pale with fright. She nodded quickly. I'm sorry, Connor. I understand. She backed away. Leo remained in his seat, his eyes closed. Connor knew how to handle different people in different situations. He was sharp, resourceful. That's why Leo had partnered with him. So far, it had been a very pleasant collaboration. The guy who'd gone for the food returned quickly. He handed the bag to Leo, and Connor slammed his foot on the gas. After hanging up with Leo, Chloe waited in her room for what felt like an eternity. Just as she was about to call and ask where he was, there was a knock on the door. Gabby was watching TV, giggling at something on the screen. The knock snapped her out of it, and she went to the door. Seeing Leo through the peephole, she opened it. Leo, you're here. I'm just gonna go use the restroom. Every time Leo came over, she used the urine escape. She knew being a third wheel was awkward. Leo appreciated her perceptiveness. You get a raise next month. Really? Gabby's face lit up. Thanks, Leo. She skipped off happily. Chloe knew Leo had arrived. Before he came, she'd been full of anticipation. But now that he was actually here, she felt like she should act angry. Her face was a cute mess of conflicting emotions. At least, that's what Leo thought. All right, come and get your dinner rolls. Leo had carried the food in a plastic bag. When he sat on the table, Chloe couldn't see what was inside. Hearing him mention rolls, she said softly, I had a dream just now. A wise master told me I shouldn't eat vegetarian food tonight. Maybe we should go out. Only Chloe could come up with such a ridiculous excuse. Leo nodded with a straight face, even feigning surprise. What a coincidence. I had the same dream. Chloe said, surprised. Leo continued, so I swapped your rolls for a steamed sea base on the way over. Hurry up, it's getting cold. Coming. Chloe forgot all about being reserved. Filling her stomach was the priority. When she was with Leo, Chloe had no inhibitions. She ate without caring about her image, getting oil all over her mouth. Leo, she asked between bites, when do you think I can go back to school? Being cooped up in a hotel was making her antsy. She wanted to get back to her normal life. Unfortunately, Leo didn't have an answer. Just a little longer. Your dad will be back in the country soon, too. At the mention of Ethan, Chloe pouted again. How come you know things I don't? The room filled with the sour scent of jealousy. Leo didn't explain. He just watched her quietly. Even when she was eating, Chloe was beautiful. He hadn't told her about the Jang Corporation's troubles or his plans for Jesse Jang. He hadn't even asked about her shares in the company. He didn't care about them, and he didn't want her to have too much to worry about. She had enough on her plate already. After finishing, Chloe licked her fingers. She'd used her hands to pick at the fish bones. Full and satisfied, she leaned back in her chair and patted her stomach. Leo, look, I'm getting fat. Through the thin layer of her silk pajamas, her stomach was still perfectly flat. He had no idea how she'd come to that conclusion. Since he couldn't see it, Leo decided to investigate a different way. Hey, pervert. The moment his hand touched her, he heard her yelp. Leo pulled his hand back and rested his forehead against hers. Be good, he said softly. Tell me, how am I a pervert? His voice was gentle, and Chloe loved it, but the strong smell of alcohol was overpowering. She pinched her nose and leaned back. How much did you drink? Leo just shrugged, clearly not intending to answer. Yvonne invited you to dinner. Did she say what it was about? Chloe thought for a moment, then shook her head. I don't know. Leo, is there a problem? If it's not convenient, we don't have to go. But Leo said you should go. I ran into her at my class dinner tonight. She said a bunch of weird things. Chloe was instantly on high alert. She bit her lip and stared at him. After a moment, she even took his hand and placed it back on her stomach. Leo, let's not go. Sensing the shift in her attitude, Leo teased her. Not calling me a pervert anymore? Chloe nodded earnestly. Nope. Even if you're a pervert, as long as you're only a pervert to me, that's enough. If Yvonne's intentions weren't so blatantly obvious, Leo wouldn't have minded having dinner with her. She was a beautiful woman, easy on the eyes. But as things stood, it was better to pass. Her motives were impure. The moment he rejected her, she immediately went to Chloe. That kind of urgency screamed trouble. But Leo didn't say any of this to Chloe. Chloe's waist was slender, her stomach flat without a trace of fat. Feeling the searing heat of Leo's palm, a blush crept up her cheeks. Thankfully, Leo didn't press his advantage. All full, I should probably head back. It was getting late, and it was time for Leo to leave. It was clear Chloe didn't want him to go. Her eyes darted around, searching for an excuse to make him stay a little longer. In the time since her father's troubles began, she had tasted the cold reality of the world. Only Leo made her feel warm. Her reliance on him was growing deeper by the day. She thought for a long time, but came up with nothing. Seeing that Leo was already at the door, putting on his shoes, she quickly ran after him. "I'm full. I need to walk around to digest." Leo was about to refuse, but when he saw the anxious look on her face, he nodded. "Go get change. MHM." Hearing his agreement, Chloe's face lit up with a smile. She dashed back into her room. Knowing he was waiting, she changed with record speed. In just a few minutes, she was dressed and had even put on a little makeup. Her already stunning face looked even more radiant under the light. "Let's go." Chloe's eyes crinkled as she smiled, hooking her arm through Leo's and opening the door. Inside the hotel, she hadn't felt it, but as soon as they stepped outside, a blast of cold air hit them. Chloe instinctively shrank closer to Leo. "Leo, it's snowing." The sky was pitch black, but under the streetlights, they could see sparse snowflakes dancing in the air. Snow in the south rarely stuck. It was usually just sleet. Chloe closed her umbrella and reached out, tried to catch a snowflake, but she couldn't. By the time it landed in her palm, it was just a drop of ice-cold water. Leo was wearing a black down jacket with a thick scarf wrapped around his neck. It was so cold that half his face was buried in it. Chloe told him not to move and took out her phone to snap a picture. The phone's camera was low resolution, and it was nighttime, so the photo was blurry. But you could still tell it was Leo, and that was enough. "Leo, let's go see real snow this winter," Chloe said, her face glowing as she set his picture as her wallpaper. She had seen snow before, of course, but never with him. The word "see snow" made Leo shiver involuntarily. Seeing snow meant building snowmen, and probably a snowball fight. The thought alone was freezing. No way. But saying no right now would ruin the moment. "We'll see if we have time," he said noncommittally. Chloe could tell he was just brushing her off. She pouted, her cheeks puffed out. "Fine, if you won't go, I'll just go with Sophia." Leo blinked. "I didn't quite catch that. What did you just say?" Chloe turned her face away, repeating haughtily. "I said, if you won't go, I'll go with Sophia." Leo shook his head. The part before that. Chloe thought for a moment, then said uncertainly, "Let's go see snow this winter." Leo immediately nodded. "Okay." Chloe stood frozen for 2 or 3 seconds. When she finally processed it, she glared at him, exasperated. "You asshole. When I asked you, you didn't want to go. But when I say I'll go with Sophia, suddenly you're in?" The more she spoke, the angrier she got, her eyes welling up with tears. Leo knew he'd taken the joke too far. He reached out and pinched her cheek. "All right, I was just kidding. When break starts, I'll take you." Hearing that, all of Chloe's grievances seemed to vanish. She just looked at him. "You better not be lying. Liars are little dogs." "That's more like it." Chloe was satisfied with his answer and continued walking forward. She only took a couple of steps before stopping. "What's wrong?" Leo asked, curious. A mischievous glint appeared in her eyes. "Nothing. Just walk ahead of me." Leo knew it was a trap. A stupid one, but he was willing to be tricked. He did as she asked and walked a few steps ahead. Sure enough, a weight landed on his back. An extra 100 pounds, or so, settled onto his legs. Thankfully, he was prepared. "Slow down," he said, reaching back to support her legs. They were being dusted by sleet. It was cold, but neither of them cared. Chloe's bell-like laughter was music to his ears. After a few minutes, seeing that he had no intention of putting her down, she asked with a smile, "Leo, am I heavy?" "Heavy," he answered without a second thought. Chloe was not pleased. She lowered her head and nibbled on his ear. "I'll give you one more chance," she said in a muffled voice. What 19-year-old girl wasn't conscious of her weight? Who didn't want to be praised by the one they loved? To hear things like, "You have a great figure. You're not heavy at all." But Leo refused to change his answer. "You are heavy." Chloe gritted her teeth in frustration. Just as she was about to leave a lasting impression on him, Leo spoke again. "After all, you're half my world. How could you not be heavy?" Chloe froze mid-bite. Her eyes suddenly stung. Thinking back, Leo really was so good to her. She wrapped her arms tighter around him. "My world, even if it's only half." He was wearing so many layers for winter that carrying her wasn't much fun. 10 minutes was about enough. "Should I take you back?" "I have to go to." Chloe knew Leo was busy. The fact that he'd made time to be with her was already more than she could ask for. Behind his back, where he couldn't see, she wiped her eyes and nodded emphatically. "Okay, don't work too hard." When Chloe slid off his back, Leo couldn't tell if it was his imagination, but the look in her eyes seemed even softer. "Chloe." Hearing her name, Chloe instinctively answered, then looked at him with a puzzled expression. "Say you like me." Chloe was dumbfounded. Who forces someone to do that? How could she say it out loud? She hemmed and hawed for a long time before finally whispering, so softly it was barely audible. I like you. Then, she turned and ran. After entering the hotel, she didn't forget to look back at Leo. Seeing he hadn't left, she waved at him. Ignoring the stares of the people around her, she shouted, "Leo, I like you. I always have." Chloe had told Leo she liked him before, but always when they were alone. To say those words in public, in front of everyone. Who knows how much courage that took? After she said it, she rushed onto the elevator without a backward glance. The lobby manager looked at Chloe's retreating back, then at Leo, standing dazedly in the wind and snow. For a moment, he was torn. Should he offer him an umbrella or not? Thankfully, Leo didn't make him agonize for long. He hailed a taxi from the street and left. Night marks the end of the day for many, but for others, it's just the beginning. In a lavish private room at a luxurious club, a group of young men clinked glasses, their boisterous laughter echoing down the hall. "Jesse, these guys here, their families are all in business," Connor said, sitting next to Jesse Jang, constantly showering him with praise and attention. "They may not be as big as your family, but they're all successful in their own fields. They all want to be like you, to build something of their own and impress their families. They're hoping you can show them the ropes." Hearing everyone call him Jesse with such respect felt good, but there was still a sense of disparity. When he'd arrived, Connor had told him he'd arrange for the highest level reception. At first, Jesse had been curious, but when he saw it, a sour taste filled his mouth. 6 luxury supercars were lined up on either side of the entrance, their headlights creating a brightly lit runway. In front of each car stood a beautiful woman in a skimpy dress. Jesse couldn't imagine how much it must have cost to have them stand there in the freezing cold, waiting for his arrival. This, perhaps, was the magic of money. The feeling of inadequacy only grew inside the private room. The other guys casually talked about their families giving them hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend on whatever they wanted. They mentioned how much it cost to have a certain celebrity join them for dinner, and how little extra money could get you. Other things. The supercars downstairs were just ordinary vehicles in their family garages. Jesse remained sullenly silent. Their families were clearly not as wealthy as the Jang Corporation, so why were they living lives he could only dream of? Ethan Jang was rich, but that was his money. While the company paid dividends to the Jang brothers, the money went to Jesse's father's generation. It was a lot, but it wasn't his to spend. Hearing Connor's fawning words brought a small measure of comfort. That's right, he thought. You're all spending your family's money. I'm earning my own. The fact that we can meet and eat at the same table means it's fake, Jesse said, puffing out his chest. Don't be so formal. If you ever need my help with anything, just give me a call. This was how it worked at these dinners. It didn't matter if you knew each other or not. You had to act magnanimous and put on a show. What happened later was a problem for later. Only a fool would take it seriously. The others knew this too, but they continued to flatter him. Tonight's dinner was, after all, arranged for him. As they were about to raise another glass, a young man stormed into the room. He slammed his car keys on the table and downed a glass of liquor in one gulp. "Whoa, Dylan, who pissed you off?" Connor asked, walking over and putting a hand on his shoulder. This Dylan could really drink. He just chugged a full 2-ounce glass of hard liquor without even flinching. "Damn it," he fumed. "I don't know whose car it is, but it's parked right at the intersection. It's one thing to drive a piece of crap, but to park it like an idiot? I almost scraped it. If my car gets so much as a scratch, can he even afford to pay for it? You guys know me. I'm a softie. If he really can't pay, it's not like I can make him go bankrupt, right?" The others immediately chimed in, expressing their outrage. "Exactly. Honestly, who cares about the car? It's just a way to get around. But parking like that is just wrong. Like Dylan said, if one of our cars accidentally scrapes it, can he even afford the repairs?" Connor then added, "Dylan, calm down, calm down. It's fine, nothing happened. Here, let me introduce you. This is Jesse Jang of the Jang Corporation." Dylan seemed like a straightforward guy. He picked up his glass and walked over to the stone-faced Jesse. "Jesse, I'm late today. I'll punish myself with a drink." With that, he downed another 2-ounce glass. This time, it seemed to go to his head. He stumbled, and Connor, who was following him, quickly caught him. Once steady, Dylan pushed Connor away. "Jesse, I'll toast you again." Jesse was reluctant, but at this point, he had no choice. He drank. As Connor was helping Dylan back to his seat, they passed the window. Dylan saw something outside and gloated. "See? Look, what did I tell you? Parking in a spot like that, he's just asking to get hit." Connor followed his gaze and instantly fell silent. He looked like he was trying hard not to laugh, a muscle twitching in his jaw. Dylan's shout drew everyone else's attention. "Let me see. Hey, make some room. Don't push me." A crowd gathered around the small window. But when they saw the car, they all went silent. Only Dylan was oblivious. You guys tell me, isn't that guy an idiot? Even though there aren't many cars around here, and the club's parking is members only, you can't just park wherever you want. He could have just walked a little farther. Connor then stepped in to play the good guy. All right, that's enough. Dylan was confused. What's wrong? You know whose car that is? No way. Connor ignored him and turned to Jesse, whose face was frighteningly dark. Jesse, maybe you should go take care of that. Jesse? Dylan was completely bewildered. The alcohol seemed to have worn off. He shook his head. That's Jesse's car? No way. He looked at Jesse, his eyes full of meaning. Jesse's expression was indescribably complex. He wanted to curse, but his rational mind told him he couldn't. He forced a strained smile. It's fine. I've been meaning to get a new one anyway. That was the sentence Connor had been waiting for. He quickly jumped in. Exactly. Jesse's pulling in millions a month now. He's been telling me he wants to upgrade his ride. You guys have any recommendations? Enjoy Sportswear was just starting to enter the market. It was all investment right now, and what little money they had was all being spent. There were no profits. Connor was making it all up. A moment ago, Jesse had felt deeply humiliated. But after Connor's words, a sense of confidence returned. He even looked at Connor with a hint of gratitude. Yeah, he said, trying to sound casual. Got any good recommendations? Jesse Jang was fuming. Connor had said he was introducing him to a few friends tonight, but he hadn't mentioned the scale of the event. Jesse had assumed it was just a casual get-together, so he'd driven the Volkswagen his grandfather had given him. When he arrived, he was told the parking lot was for members only. He hadn't been in the area long. He didn't have a membership anywhere. He'd ended up just parking on the side of the road, thinking it would be fine since there were so few cars. But he had been wrong. An accident was one thing, but for it to happen at this exact moment, if Connor hadn't been there to smooth things over, Jesse would have wanted the ground to swallow him whole. They were all from the same circle and supposedly less successful than him, yet the strange looks they gave him after seeing his car made his skin crawl. Just as the group returned to their seats, Jesse's phone rang. I'm right next door. I'll be there in a minute. He hung up and glanced at the others. Connor quickly played the host. Jesse, if you have something to do, go ahead. I'll catch up with you later. Jesse felt a wave of relief. Then I'll be going. You guys enjoy. The others chimed in. Take care, Jesse. The moment Jesse stepped out of the room, an explosion of laughter erupted behind him. He heard it, even from a distance, and could only quicken his pace. The shame was suffocating. After Jesse was gone, someone gave Connor the all-clear. Connor collapsed into his chair, a wide grin spreading across his face as he looked at the others. Thanks for your hard work, everyone. They all dismissed it. The young man, Dylan, smirked. Connor, how was my performance? Connor gave him a thumbs up. What do you mean, like? It was perfect. That arrogant tone was spot on. Ha. Listening to Connor recount last night's events, Leo couldn't help but laugh. You had someone hit his car, didn't you? Connor grinned. It was my dad's Phaeton. He was planning on getting a new car anyway, so I borrowed it. A new paint job will be about 20 grand. He paused. Oh, and Jesse's insurance doesn't cover the full amount. He'll have to pay the rest out of pocket. Leo gave him a long, deep look. A Phaeton, $1 million luxury car, used for an insurance scam? It was a good thing George's son's construction materials company had been making a killing lately. Otherwise, who could afford a son who burned money like this? And speaking of which, George's son's success was largely thanks to Leo. While Ethan Jang was still around, he had funneled some of the Jang Corporation's projects to him, and Leo had sourced all the materials for the Mill District redevelopment from him, paying full market price. It was because of this that Connor's loyalty to Leo had grown so strong. Leo, I've already made an appointment with him. We're going to pick up a car tomorrow, a $200,000 Lamborghini. As he said it, Connor licked his lips. It was clear he wanted one for himself. Leo then added, I've been thinking the last couple of days. Just attacking him from this angle won't be enough to do any real damage to his family. Even if he digs himself into a hole, his father will just bail him out. Hearing this, Connor fell into thought. It was true. The Jangs had deep pockets. They could afford to let Jesse mess up. Now Connor was worried. So what do we do? Leo's smile turned wicked. He clearly had a plan. What's the one thing Jesse wants to do more than anything right now? Connor thought for a moment. Enjoy sportswear? Prove himself to his family. Leo snapped his fingers. Exactly. The Jang Corporation is in a financial crisis right now. Aside from providing Enjoy with distribution channels, they don't have a penny to spare. And now he's spent what little capital he had on a car. So what do you think he'll do if a financing offer suddenly lands in his lap? Connor was a bit confused. Leo's thinking was always so unpredictable. He could have legally crushed Enjoy with a lawsuit over their deceptive advertising, but instead, he'd helped them turn the crisis around. And now this. He decided it was better not to try and figure it out. Leo, just tell me what you want me to do. Tell him an investment firm is interested in partnering with him, Leo said calmly. See if he's willing. You don't have to worry about a rich kid living off his parents. You have to worry about a rich kid who wants to be an entrepreneur. Once they take that first step, it's an endless cycle of investment. They might make money for a while, but the slightest trouble can lead to ruin. Leo's plan was simple. Invest, then sign a performance-based contract. Just like those streaming platforms that were thriving one day and gone the next. Leo even had the terms figured out. He'd make the conditions seem incredibly easy, something like guaranteeing the company wouldn't incur losses due to legal risks. For any other reason, the loss would be accepted. For some entrepreneurs, especially in 2004, that was barely a condition at all. Intellectual property laws were weak, and piracy and knockoffs were rampant. With a little bit of caution, it would be easy to avoid. Seeing Connor nod, Leo continued. According to you, he's spending about 200 grand on the car. Enjoy's account only has about 100,000 in it right now, so he'll definitely dip into the city project funds. Next month, find a way to choke his cash flow. Chinese New Year is coming up, and the factory workers will want their holiday bonuses. What he can't pay, he'll start getting desperate. The reason Jesse dared to spend so much on a car, besides his vanity, was that Connor had given him an overly optimistic budget for the next month, with profits high enough to cover the expense. He trusted Connor, so he didn't have much psychological burden. After Leo finished laying out the plan, Connor stroked his chin. After a moment, he said slowly, Leo, the Jang Corporation is behind Enjoy. Jesse is still a Jang. What if they step in at the last minute? Will all our work be for nothing? Everything we're doing right now is actually helping Enjoy grow. I'm worried we're just setting the table for someone else. Leo didn't deny it, but the Jang Corporation belonged to Ethan Jang. Of that, Leo was certain. As long as Ethan didn't want to give up power, those vultures would never have a chance to swoop in. The reason Ethan hadn't made a move yet was likely because the time wasn't right. And for that reason, Leo was also willing to wait. If 1 month wasn't enough, then 2. Chloe was still here, and Richard Chien and his cronies were getting more and more aggressive. He didn't believe Ethan could stand by and do nothing forever. But he couldn't tell Connor any of this. As much as he trusted him, Ethan's plans were too sensitive to be leaked. He could only offer a vague excuse. The Jang Corporation is in a very complicated situation right now. Even if something happens to Enjoy, they don't have the energy to interfere too much. They're more likely to just abandon the project. After all, a lot of people were against it from the start. If it weren't for Jesse's father and Vivian Chien insisting on it, it never would have happened. Connor fell silent. Leo knew too much about the Jang Corporation. If he said it, it must be true. After Connor left, Leo leaned back in his chair, gazing out the floor-to-ceiling window at the city below. New Year's was approaching. Red lanterns hung along the streets, and malls were plastered with promotion signs. It seemed everyone was looking forward to the arrival of 2005. Leo was looking forward to it too. After this year, he would no longer be a teenage boy. Leo, hurry up. The show's about to start. In room 718, Shane and the others were already dressed and ready, rushing Leo. The university was holding a massive winter formal on the main field tonight. The student government's marketing committee had been hyping it for weeks, promising it would be unlike any previous event. They had invited actual celebrities who weren't just there to watch, but to perform. In any other setting, hearing them sing would cost money. Tonight, it was all free. Naturally, the crowd was huge. On top of that, many corporate executives were also in attendance. Shane and his friends were anxious, terrified they'd be too late to get good spots up front. Leo checked himself in the mirror. He found a pair of black-framed glasses somewhere and put them on. They made him look scholarly, and paired with the black scarf around his neck, he had the air of a 20th century intellectual. He was quite satisfied with the look. Let's go. Mark glanced at him. Leo, which girl are you trying to impress? This vibe doesn't suit you at all. Leo shook his head dismissively. You don't get it. I'm a public figure now. The paparazzi have seen all my pictures. I have to be low-key. The guys in 718 knew about his situation with Chloe, so they didn't question it. They just asked curiously, by the way, is Chloe coming today? She still hasn't come back to campus? If we didn't see you around, we'd have thought she'd already gone abroad. Going through something like this must be really tough for her. Ethan Jang was living a quiet life abroad, but Chloe was paying the price. The media, hungry for a sensational story, had focused all their lenses on her. The slightest public appearance sparked a storm of speculation. It was a good thing online media wasn't as developed as it would be in the future. Otherwise, she wouldn't even be able to go online. She has something to do today. Can't make it, Leo replied. She should be back to normal next semester. They were just asking. Chloe was beautiful, but they all knew she was in love with Leo. They couldn't understand what was wrong with the girl's eyes. Let's go, let's go. By the time they reached the field, it was already packed. The only clear path was the exclusive lane leading to the VIP section in front of the stage, but it was guarded by security who only recognized staff passes. Long time no see, Angie. Leo ran into a familiar face. Angie, the current president of the Student Government Association. She had been the one to welcome him when he first arrived at the university. Back then, she was just a committee head. After a series of events led to the previous president's dismissal, Leo had recommended her for the position. The university, eager to appease Leo and prevent him from causing any trouble, had actually agreed. Even as the SGA president, tonight she was just another volunteer guarding the entrance. Leo. Angie was stunned when she saw him, unsure if it was really him. The old Leo would never have worn glasses. He was the antithesis of the word scholarly. But tonight, judging by his appearance, you'd mistake him for a refined and well-behaved student. You have a great memory, Angie, Leo complimented. Angie just rolled her eyes. If I remember correctly, you still have a position in the SGA, don't you? When do you plan on showing up? Leo had almost forgotten about that. The SGA? It had been a whim, a result of Angie's enthusiastic invitation. Actually doing work? Forget it. Leo felt he was busy enough without getting involved in that mess. He quickly denied it. Then you must be remembering wrong. Angie was helpless. She knew this was a formidable figure she couldn't afford to offend. She changed the subject. Are you guys trying to get in? The student entrance and the VIP entrance were in different places. The only reason to be here was to get into the VIP section. Next to Angie was another girl, plump, with a constant scowl, as if someone owed her money. Hearing Angie's question, she shot Leo a suspicious look. Do you have a staff pass? If not, please leave. You can go around to the other side. Her tone was cold, and while it was unpleasant, it wasn't enough to be truly offensive. Shane, Mark, and Chad all looked at Leo. He was the one who had led them here. Leo had given his staff pass to Sophia, but he wasn't worried. He didn't have a pass, but he had his phone. Mr. Jang, I'm at the entrance. Could you come get me? He was calling Vice President Jang. The old president was nearing retirement, and Jang was now handling most of the university's affairs. When he received Leo's call, he was in the middle of analyzing Russia's current market situation with Laura Een. He hung up and smiled at Laura. Ms. Een, your little ancestor has arrived. I have to go get him. Ancestor was Laura's nickname for Leo because he needed to be served like one. Hearing the term from the vice president's mouth, Laura couldn't help but laugh. She handed her purse to Sophia. Sophia, hold this for me for a second. He's here. Sophia was standing right next to Laura, but her attention wasn't on them. Her eyes kept darting to another section of the VIP area. The people sitting there were all big shots. That alone wouldn't have caught her attention. What was crucial was the person at the center of it all, surrounded by a crowd of powerful figures. She was wearing a cream-colored wool coat and slim-fitting jeans. Her long, slightly curled hair fell naturally over her shoulders. The light caught her face, revealing no trace of makeup. Her features were exquisitely beautiful, her demeanor poised and elegant. Even as she was being showered with praise, she remained calm and unfazed. What a coincidence, Sophia muttered to herself. She only snapped out of it when Laura called her name. Okay, she said, nodding instinctively. You two go ahead.